Welcome back to the SCL Season 5 Valorant. It's getting started off once again, heading into round 3, week 3, Dallas. We've got a pretty good selection. Jumping back on over to our Tier 1 block. It's Florida facing off against FGCU. So an interstate somewhat rivalry here for our Tier 1 block. And these two teams not exactly having the best performance so far coming out of round 1 and 2, heading into round 3.
Right, and I think honestly that's the reason I'm kind of advocated for this matchup to go ahead and kind of get things rolling. Is considering that these two teams, when you look at the tier one block, you look at the caliber of just conversation here. I mean, it's not really these two teams aren't your front runners when it comes around to the
Yeah.
tier one area. I mean, considering that FGCU, UF haven't really had the best start, they're not going to have the best records coming into the week three. But I mean, even then, it still is week three. It's still relatively early. You can't really beat them while they're down. And knowing that this is an opportunity for at least one of them to get a win on their record, this gives them also a little bit of opportunity to kind of get that taste of victory, see what that feels like, and see what they can really iron out, and see what kind of A feels like it legitimately could work, or better yet, B, what things do we just really need to start ironing out? Because if it's slipping through in a matchup like this, it's sure as heck not going to cut it in the greater league. So I think honestly, this is one of these weeks where it really just it is a breath of fresh air, lets you really just start to figure things out because knowing these two squads and who they have to go up against, I think this is going to be probably a week that they can refer to at least for the next four.
Yeah, I had a conversation with the Gray just yesterday on the B stream broadcast we did simultaneously with the Rocket League, and we highlighted week
Right.
3, round 3 feels like when everything should start to fall in order for the standings and where you'll have to be the difference maker to start to actually see changes in the standings. And it's really where you need to start to find immediate value as a roster. FTCU's only actually played one game up to this point. The second game, or technically round 1, I think they had to forfeit. So their only loss or win is actually coming off against, I believe, Auburn. I may be totally wrong here. Something along those lines. So they have their loss came to Auburn. So they have like some copium that they could have here, Dallas, saying,
Right.
we've technically only lost one time. We had to have a forfeit previously. Whatever the case may be, they have a chance here to be a team that's unknown. They don't have any stats for that week because of that. So maybe they don't know how they play. Maybe they won't know the agent selection entirely because League OS obviously has all that information and we have stats for it.
Right.
So this could be something a team looks at and says, hey, we don't know enough about them. How is this going to affect us? And Florida's going to keep their eye out for that. But speaking of that effect, speaking of knowing about your opponents, you need to know about the maps you're heading into. So let's go ahead and pull up the map and selection screen. You'll take a look at what we got coming to the table. And as you'll see, it's nothing that different from the average day of Valorant.
Right.
It's Lotus and Haven, followed by Bind for a decider if it is required. If anything was entertaining, it's the fact that Ascent was the second ban and not, in the second phase of bans is nearly the last one at the end.
Yeah, and even I mean, knowing the Haven obviously being in play here, I mean, going back to those kind of three side maps, I mean, these teams obviously love them. So knowing these first two maps, it should feel like we get around to that bind, just having those two three style maps. I mean, obviously Lotus being a little more kind of thin comparatively, even though it is a little bit larger, feels like just not as many avenues to cut through, not as many long hallways, chances for operators to kind of go off. That's why I think the map is a little bit better, and teams prefer it over Haven more times than not. But even then, to know that we are going to be going to both of those maps is kind of just really impactful here, kind of understanding that, well, I mean, it should be some equilibrium here. It should be that litmus test that I talked about earlier. It should give these teams an even better opportunity to kind of refer to themselves, figure out what's going on. Because, I mean, they're just really getting in reps here, not only of a particular style and map case, but also better yet, of what their team really needs. So, knowing Lotus being map number one, I always like to see teams also open up, which I mean, usually in a situation when they get kind of that specialization, going for a three site map just because they get to slow things down. They don't have to warm up immediately. I mean, going into buying map one always feels atrocious for a lot of
Mhm.
squads. But whenever you get to choose these kind of three site maps, you can default, you can play a lot more slow, and you can kind of wait to warm up on those ones before you really get into the nitty gritty that we do see on that map number three.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about Haven's B side. It's very difficult to get into. Most of the time, it's quick sprint into there, set up a toxic screen if you're playing Viper, cut off one side, get your smokes up for both links, get that plan down, and then get the heck out of the dodge, right? Hop board towards garage, have some sort of post flank, sit inside window, watch the crossfire, have Cypher tripwires behind you, just make sure they can't take map control. It's pretty simple to get the B sites as long as you follow that formula typically. And that's ultimates are there to counter, like the Rolling Thunder. Some teams are bringing a Brim for some reason. I don't know why you give it Orbital Strike as an option. No matter what the case may be, typically that B site is very fast, eco rounds, thrifty. That's not always the case though on Lotus for the B site. You need a
Right.
lot of utility to get even safe into B in the first place. And a lot of teams will apply pressure through B just to have access to door to give themselves a little bit wider of an angle and to create that freedom over towards Mound if they're seeing a lot of early pressure there first by the defending side. If there's something like a jet for the duelist, they'll quickly tailwind off towards Mound. They'll take that space very quickly. They'll fight in your face on thrifties, force you to take in closer, fight closer to them, where they can have a Spectre engagement that's a little bit more fair, forcing you to burn more utility quickly. No matter what the case is, the B sites, which is the big difference, so to say, of having that third objective, play on a different level. And when you jump from that to bind, where both sides require meticulous preparation, burning of utility of the opposing side, thinking about every single utility that you use and saying, where is this going to find me value? I have to make sure I'm managing my time clock effectively so I don't get countered by something as simple as a Viper spit in the final few moments that completely screw my chances on the round. It's going to be a big game change. It's going to be I would say, pace changer, so to say, jumping if we have to see that third map to go from these 3 objective maps so heavily to a so critical 2 objective map like Bind.
Yeah, and looking at these 3 side maps, and even then better yet, as I mentioned, kind of the slow methodical pace that we can typically see out of them. I do like to see when we get to see these switch ups every now and again. You do like to see these teams who like to go a lot more aggressive with it, find themselves at the race, but even more so, seeing what we're seeing on both sides of the field, knowing that FGCU, not only are they opting for that raise, but they're going to be going with the chamber on the opposite end of it is always a little bit interesting to see, consider what other kind of utility you have to work with. We have that Kjoy with the Killjoy who can kind of play a little bit more oppressive, be able to kind of throw those nano swarms a little more aggressively and kind of set up things as you're moving through the map. Your Chamber's a little more kind of, I don't know, territorial. He really likes to play around his rendezvous. He really likes to kind of go ahead and create an actual area. And he doesn't really have much diversity in that or much ability to kind of transition that somewhere. So knowing that that's what you're following up with on the Rays, I mean, it feels a little bit better because his Rays' movement capabilities is very much aggressive, very much occurs within a particular instance of the map. Meanwhile, while we obviously see with Florida, you have that KJ being followed up with what was a Rays. I was seeing that Neon hover there by a little bit while for McClash, but I mean, going with that Gecko as well, you're just going to see so much oppressive utility being able to be thrown out there compared to what we're seeing at FGCU, which I think is going to really pan to their favor for the attacking side. But for defense, even then better yet, these retakes should feel a lot more comfortable.
Honestly, the big initiator change here is something that screams out at me. Fade is so valuable on this map, Dallas on Lotus, especially when it comes to that C site. And
Right.
being able to toss your Hans over the top, having a little bit more value to the deep backside of sight, make sure they can't play towards waterfall whatsoever, clearing out with a Prowler to make sure that it can go back towards defender spawn all the way, just creates a whole lot of space that's extremely valuable for you, but you do lack what Gecko brings to the table, essentially having that 6th player on your team for the odd 6 seconds it takes to get them forward and get that spike down, and the freedom of which to have that 5th player, that Gecko, McClash in this case, standing there with their gun up, ready to defend the wingman and help with the rest of the team to set up for that plan in the first place. Florida Orange have a really solid attacking lineup set up for them, and I think it's just going to be just as valuable on the defense, also having that KJ in comparison to that Chamber. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, can they survive this first half strong enough? Can they create better options with their initiator? Can they find more value being able to find intel as quickly as possible? Will ultimately they be flushed out by FGCU, who are playing fairly aggressive already in round 1, fighting for space, getting control over towards main, getting some pressure off towards McClash, who's tethered in Decayed, just keeping them inside of A main for as long as possible, even bringing up a fight towards Mound, where there's the rendezvous change, and that's that extra little bit of distance that gets them back towards Waterfall. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see really how this kind of starts to go, because already you see so many players allocated to that A main area of the map where you see the aggression coming through from the side of the defense, but even then better yet, that should give a lot of attention over to your A side of the map, letting you know that this possibility of a transition to that C side of the map should be much more plausible. You've already waited so long on this that you can't really execute off of it. And better yet, Frisco not able to find that trade makes things a little bit more difficult. So while they do want to shift their attention somewhere else, I think it's taking a little bit too long to really make that executive decision to make that shift. Where by the time they get here, I mean, you had the Omen there. He was already kind of in the vicinity, but with a quick little exchange, even better yet, kind of a little bit of a gap to work with there. You see FGCU able to kind of create a little bit of a room.
Spike sticking. Thanks, little man.
And back aside, post-plant scenario for Florida Orange. 2 players coming from Waterfall with 2 coming from Defender Spawn. Dark cover will go down to obfuscate the view line. Secondary one for Waterfall, though. Uber has to go in. Concussive blast, not going to matter. Florida, desperation on sight. Hardly a sweat broken, though. Everyone from FGCU that attempts to step forward is decimated, and a first-round falls quite easily for Florida Orange with that early pressure to A, despite the difficulties, a quick rotate, and an easy setup for C.
Yeah, I mean, seeing really what's happening here already. I mean, Florida, obviously, with the first round, considering what we saw with that shift of focus from the A side to the C side, I think they were already committing too much to the A side, and not having that Omen there to play around with Lucky making that shift right back over to B is just a saving grace for that team. Because, I mean, obviously, you've got two players there. You're probably getting another trade-off. You're maybe finding the actual advantage on the rear end of that entire encounter. But a big thing that I'm going to be looking at here for these next coming rounds, especially round number 3, is to see what things look like. Florida Orange, as I said, they feel like they have a setup just as much as FGCU does, but they have a legitimate setup, I want to say, in the KJ, in the Gecko. They feel they can make themselves at home. They have enough utility to actually create a presence on the map with it. Meanwhile, FGCU, they're a lot more kind of in the moment, have to execute, kind of like that Astra gameplay, where, I mean, honestly, it comes down to somebody making the calls, and it has to execute within that instance instead of having a little bit of leniency. So, I mean, Florida, while they do have the upper hand in terms of rounds, they don't really have the upper hand in terms of the game just yet because, well, it's round number 2, and we have yet to see a first play come through.
Who's waiting for a bit of an audio cue inside of A main? So going forward, they want to claim space. He set up a dark cover towards stairs, but you got two players that prowled all the way back to defender spawn, and your team's still defaulting on the attack. You got two players looking to B. They're going to take B from the flank. They'll have upper heaven. The only problem here is that they don't have control off towards waterfall side. They'll smoke it quite easily. No audio
30
cue
seconds
still.
left.
Even with one towards Link. There's not really enough information for FGCU. This will be a free plant for Florida Orange. No problem for them whatsoever. FGCU have to come in on this post-plant scenario. Killer, careful of the idea that a player is prowling over towards C. Assumingly, they had gotten to a firefight off towards Mound. And they're already down to 30 HP. Austin's trying to step forward. Paint Shell's fabulous to make Clash and Zero, but not enough to finish the job. They'll have to get a whole lot closer and more. Zero with 2. Down goes in Clash. And Austin needs to continue to pound that pressure forward. Uber will fall, the last remaining teammate of Austin. And just make this round expensive. Guardian collected. Paranoia not connecting. A shot player. And Austin goes down, but enough value gained. 2,900 credits knocked off the board. I think they collect that rifle. So 2,300, 2,200 for the SMG instead. Still pretty good for FGCU heading into the next.
No, I mean, obviously, it would have not got a couple credits there, but even better yet with all for the side of Florida Orange, recovering every single one of those rifles is going to be huge for them. Because the Guardian is the one that I always kind of like to attest all of the fame and glory to, just because of the fact that, I mean, obviously, if you're hitting headshots and that's what you're focusing on, while the Vandal gives you the leniency of being able to spray it down, it's the Guardian that is going to hit more reliable one-taps, especially with that first shot accuracy, and it's going to be just as much of a one-shot as anything else, if not more. So already going ahead and looking at this round number 3, when you do see the actual purchases once again coming through from Florida Orange, they're wanting to invest in a round like this. They want to really just hammer down the success. They want to make sure this kind of snowball effect starts occurring here. And FGCU, obviously, the ball's in their court. They're the ones that got to find this shutdown. This first blood is going to be so much more critical than anything else for the rest of this game, just because this is going to allow Florida to really just start that steamrolling process. So every single player, I think, needs to be a lot more cautious about what kind of approaches they're taking, what angles they're holding, because obviously, right there, number 8, Kogan, looking down that B side, that was a 1v2 that you're just not even aware of because you don't have any real information to be given. And that's the caveat of this setup so far, is your Gecko is your only information. And when you don't have it, something like Killer can go ahead and just pick you off if you're trying to go ahead and peek something.
I don't know why you have your controller being the one-man army off towards C. This is 3 rounds in a row for Florida. And while it wasn't punished the previous 2, there's rivals in play for FGCU. That's a wild accusation to make, but it feels like they're throwing their smokes out the window. They'll still get sight. They'll still be set up for a post-one. They're still finding success. They're also starting to find it fall the other way. FGCU, a 2 versus 3. Rifle still in hand. 2 players downstairs. Flashed out, and the crash as well. One detained. Zero deals with him, and Zero goes in for a third. Florida Orange, 3 in a row now, despite the sacrificial lamb that is Player Universe.
When you look at the money left after that, I mean, 3 players on the side of FGCU having 0 credits to work with. It's just really unfortunate to see that. I mean, they're right back down to the depths. They can't really have much to work with here. The best thing they can do is probably manage to get themselves 2 kills on this round, just because they couldn't manage to kind of accumulate an ultimate. And even then, just the kills, the pure amount of pressure coming out from Florida, they have already, as you saw, got that thrash out in the last round. Now this one, they're going to have themselves a showstopper to work with. even then, Kogan could even then farm some of these orbs and manage to get themselves a lockdown. It's just the amount of resources available for Florida here that it feels like a very, very detrimental start to the game for FGCU, and it's going to be a hill they have to climb just to even kind of find themselves in equilibrium. Because within the matter of 3 rounds, unexpectedly, looking at that force, leaving those guns available, and even then, better yet, just based off letting that staircase over towards the A side be open, you lost the majority of your game for this first quarter, I'd say.
Yeah, FGCU going to have a lot to claw back into, especially with an eco round like this on the books. Space will be claimed off towards C. Playing those dark covers to deny entry in towards walkway is quite smart for the defensive side of FGCU. It's what you're supposed to do. But unlike Bind, where I talked about you just need to buy time, you don't have that luxury. They rotate back to C from either site is too easy and too quick. You have to be able to be quite willing to give up to take back the lots. And that's just going to be something Florida Orange will take pretty big lap of luxury with. Unfortunately, the Sheriffs finding a bit too much impact for FGCU's defense. Obviously, the denial of the plant in default for C makes it so you can't hold off towards Mound. Race will have to rotate back over with the spike to get it back into space. Left. You lost another one as you tried to take control off towards the B side, back inside of main. You can regain the audio cue to put the spike back down. You still have plenty of time to do so. You're still very careful of the shots coming forward as Killer's off towards Waterfall. A showstopper even used by Zero. They feel enough pressure despite it being eco round. Their player down. They don't want to take any chances, but this one's not going to matter. Headhunter does its name justice. Zimclass sits in the corner. Spray transfer's not clean. And Kogan, you've got to go crazy. Finding one. Spike's been tapped. Killer will hop off for nary a moment. Holding the ball. It's not going to matter. Kogan gets one more. Requires now a 4K with a dark cover. No sightline, and Kogan feels desperate.
Knows it.
Assumes the dark cover went up after the tap. There's no way it could be going. Lucky has to stick. Swing it out as Kogan. That saves the round for Florida Orange. 4-0 start, but what a round for FGCU.
Outstanding efforts when it comes around to just playing that defusal game, knowing that right there, that first instance, that it's more than likely going to go to half, but even then, better yet, no stuck was made at all. Lucky didn't even essentially attempt that all the way through and didn't stick it, which honestly, in a dire situation like that, there's so many factors and so many things running through your head that you really just can't commit yourself to something in that kind of circumstance, which is gave it up for Kogan right there, finding the 2 and knowing that player is heating up. It should be enough information to let you know that this guy is 4 HP. Why are you even smoking this thing up? Let the fight be taken. Make the bait. But, I mean, there's so many different things you could do there that you can't really definitively say that this one's going to be that call. But to get a 4th round here for Florida Orange, you're seeing that things are rolling along for them once again. But, I mean, there is a shred of light here for FGCU is in that last round, diminishing it down to a 1v1 kind of scenario. They are making these rounds expensive. They are creating opportunity for themselves. They're not making these rounds free by any means necessary, and that's a trend they really have to find consistency.
Killer once again able to get out of there with the rendezvous. The extension of its range is working wonders here on the map. Looks like FGCU came prepped with that change. They know how to utilize it well. Killer ready to swing once again, holding over towards default mount, and even though a sliver of Zero's head is spotted, it will not keep them alive. Killer with a quick flick downwards. Echo flashed out the space. Austin will be quickly blinded. Forced to fall back once again, but the lockdown doesn't bring enough value still for Florida Orange. Despite its use, C-Site is a failure for the attack, and they will rotate elsewhere off to A.
I mean, even though they didn't really make the execution out the back of that, you still see that obviously after such a huge investment out of that lockdown, all the FGCU players are there, hoping that there's going to be somewhat of a late hit and maybe kind of just trying to read that thing out. But keep in mind, I mean, Florida doesn't have information plays here. They can't really just execute off the back of that. But even then, they shift to the other side of the map, and they even beat FGCU into their own area of the map, which is kind of insane to say, considering that, I mean, what we're working with here, you're hoping to go back to that default. You're hoping to have some things to work with. The problem is the lockup right here is going to be a bit of a problem. You put so many of your players over here towards tree that they're having to swing out one by one and completely clothesline to even try to report in that defusal that's going off. So, I mean, the first round on the board for FGCU, their crew got the first one of 5 that we've seen in this game, and it's a 1-4. It's a flawless, and they've managed to hold on to so many ultimates in the process, shut down so much of those from Florida, and even then, better yet, found themselves some critical first bloods, and even then got some investments that just feel like they haven't paid paid off for Florida, like that lockdown in the last round, like the showstopper the round before. These things are going to take time to get back, and those could be the things that tip things into their favor, but they're gone for the moment. And if you're really starting to get these guns to work with here, if you're holding on to those things, you're going to find a lot more shutdowns. Just completely lock that thing out.
Guys, it feels like a lot of the times when you see a team start out 4-0, you don't expect them to be forced into an eco on round 5. That seems like going into round 6 or 6. That seems like a near impossibility. But Florida Orange got forced into it the previous round. A thrifty for FGCU. They knocked out 4 to 5 of the weapons. It came down to a 1v1. Obviously, last round flawless. It's a bad spot for Florida Orange to be in, but FGCU maybe a bit overzealous trying to play to the strengths of the weapons they had. They fall victim to the Sheriffs instead. Now Florida Orange looking like they're very easily going to swipe through round 6, and FGCU have nothing they can say about it. They'll get one single kill to this point. Now making it a 4 versus 1 with Killer, who's been so strong on that C site for buying time, not having any chance to do so this time. Off over towards A. Even with that tour de force popped, what can you possibly do? Dark cover forward, trying to get one more. Make it somewhat expensive for Florida Orange, but not even that will come forward. 3 kills for 0. Great round for Florida Orange. And a back to the, solid straights they've had. It's 5-1 again.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing how things are going. I mean, Florida, that round, obviously, FGCU have a lot to learn to know that maybe don't go for those default setups and invest so much right there towards that A main area. You're going to see players waiting that out, not one to really take those fights, understandably so. And then what happens after that? It's complete dismantling. You see Florida understanding what these kind of setups look like, saying they barely have any utility. And even then, if we do mow through them, say they even do make it out of dodge somehow, then they have to go for the retake. They have way less utility now because they invested so much of it right off the get-go that there you go. Understand that. Play towards your sides. Try to find those traits. Try to just get those ones, and more so put some emphasis on this defense of kind of just bolstering these sides. Playing around your independent players. Trying to just go ahead and make those variables feel as consistent and as sturdy as possible. And that's what they're doing here towards A site. Looks like they're backing up, kind of giving things up because they don't want to let any players fall for any unnecessary reason with the Nightfall available to their hands. But even then more so, you look at over towards that A site, towards the B site, you're having kind of a 1-2-3 setup because you've gotten a player to shift over from C into A in the meantime. And that needs to be that B player moving over because you can give up that site and surround it like sharks for that retake. But as it stands right now, you're leaving your chamber and your breach on an island, and with all 5 of these players seemingly having C as their objective, but only 3 being there, it's still probably going to be a little bit too much for this chamber to be dealing with.
Crash goes in. Does that manage to just say no? Killer gets out of there. That's another ultimate from Florida Orange that has not found the impact they were necessarily wanting. The Thrash will be, possibly recollected. It may be a little bit too far out in the open, and Zero tries to take claim and control over that space, but Killer punishes them in the process. Great flashes to clear out the post default. Kogan gets 2, make it 3 total for the round. But time is quickly running out, and they do not have control over the spike to get this plant down. They'll move over to in a very dangerous spot to go for this main shells forward. Player Universe taking a lot of damage, but somehow still surviving. And it's a desperate 1v2. Kogan unable to survive for this post plant. Information not key for player, and it won't matter anyways. 3 kills for Austin, 3 for Kogan, but it's a defensive powerhouse of FGCU to get their second run win.
Yeah, huge round there for FGCU doing that. This is finally one of those situations where they say, all right, after the last one, that was a little bit ugly. We get it, but we make sure to bounce back. And they did exactly that. Not really having all the money in the world to make sure to manage to buy here, as we do see Uber trying to just understand what exactly is going to be the best buy to work with. But everybody else is looking pretty darn peachy. You had the showstopper, you had the Nightfall still. The From the Shadows obviously not ever really going to be invested on that defense because 9 out of 10 players just don't really know how to use it. But, I mean, Florida only having that Rolling Thunder to work with, almost being close to a showstopper as well. You understand that things are on the way. They are in delivery, but problem is it's standard shipping. So it's going to take a pretty long while to get to their front door. And, well, FGCU, they already have essentially everything they need.
This is a Prime bundle. Why can't we have easy 2-day shipping as well? That's just ridiculous.
In Texas, I have 1-day shipping, and that
dude, we have an Amazon warehouse in the city, and I still get 2-day shipping. Like what? Ridiculous. Maybe I'm just on the wrong side. Maybe Brad gets closer because he lives on that side. Either way, No one having been taken off the board just yet. Fleur Orange on the attack. They do have one player prowling. This time off their controller, thankfully, Dallas.
Spike planted.
The paint shows go out in the perfect spot, but they're a bit too late, and Wingman will successfully get that spike down, and Florida Orange are correctly placed disproportionately away from the objective to ready themselves here for the retake. Showstopper into tree. It's McClash paying the price. Rolling Thunder to be sent back their way. You also had a Nightfall go for it. This is a lot to be expended for both sides, but it's only FGCU coming out on top of the kill feed. What a desperate spot for Frisco to be in, and what a poor place for Player Universe to stay. It's FGCU with a perfect retake, it seems, on the A site.
Rolling Thunder's a perfect opportunity, the best opportunity. Just press W key, wait for those waves, and just follow up behind them and face the stunned players that are scattered amongst the site. But I mean, right there, Florida Orange popping it, trying to use it as somewhat of a kind of a retreat tactic, saying back up, respect this thing. But FGCU already knew they had numbers. They already knew better yet they had positioning, because Florida playing out of this tree, at least from what I've seen so far, just does not seem to work out. If they're not on site, things aren't going good for them. Their main setups, I mean, obviously are great for the takes and those initial combats, and then even then just kind of taking that area, but trying to hold it down is just not their cup of tea. So I think they need to go with a different approach, especially here.
Spike down, C.
Also, Mao doesn't seem to be looking good either, because, well, I mean, Killer, we're expecting Killer to kind of be doing those things. We've seen the holds from Killer. We've seen these kill strings come out from Killer. But Florida obviously just has not gotten the memo to understand what each one of these individuals are capable of. So 1 for 3 on the board here to get things started off for FGCU. Outstanding efforts from Killer, and even then better yet, kind of force in the hand of Florida here, saying that honestly, is it even worth it to go for the round here? I mean, they're going to try to kind of peek out and see if anybody gives up anything. But as I said earlier, FGCU has learned their lesson. They're going to give up space around the map. They're not going to give anything up for free, especially in a situation like this when you know you had the lead. You just don't want to throw that thing away.
Killer's done their job. I mentioned a couple rounds prior, they weren't able to assist the team on that eco for Florida. Game with a slight push in through main. Maybe Florida really don't want to try to test their luck over on C either, with Killer on such a hot streak and the such ease of denial they have with that rendezvous escape over towards Mound. Tether will force Zero away. They can't stick that plan, and there's the perfect shot. Looks a lot like OG Haven now, doesn't it, Dallas? That Wombo combo works wonderfully for FGCU to put them up to 4 round wins, 1 barring between these two sides, with only 3 rounds left in this half. Florida wisely will take a timeout. They want to at least get 6, hopefully get up to 8 even. But I'm not so sure if FGCU will allow that, even with the time to talk things through for Florida.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that round was just not hot from the start. I mean, even you have to attribute the most of it to Killer just kind of getting 3K off the start. I mean, everything past that point is not really worth discussing too much. But even then, when you have the lead, I think this is a good time to go ahead and pop it. You still have 1 for that second half. Try to manage what's really kind of gone here well, what's gone wrong, because you seem to kind of slow down in your momentum. But it's hard to kind of beat a 4-0 start. I mean, obviously, you're not going to feel as hot. But, I mean, what? We're not 9-0ing right now, so we need to call a timeout. It's just go ahead, figure out really what's going on here, give yourself a breather, and figure out what exactly moves can be taken next. I think, honestly, a big part of that discussion should be how their A executes work and what their holds are going to be looking like there. Because for the defense, I mean, when they're already playing on site, that's not going to be a problem for them. But when it comes around to this attacking side, holding that tree, holding that main, as we mentioned, it essentially creates a line that looks just like the spawn barrier. And anything past that point, they're just kind of set up for death, depending on what half they're at. So I think, honestly, a B hit should be in order, not only just by the mini map alone, but just kind of go ahead and test the map's limits a little bit more. There's only 3 rounds remaining, so you have at least 1 more hit on every single site just to see whether or not everything lines up.
Killer does not look like they're going to be pressuring off towards Mound this time. And something is as well, they place their rendezvous all the way back inside defender spawn. They don't want to have to deal with the waterfall presence whatsoever. We'll be righting up. This will go perfect. Florida making their presence known off towards B. Jay Skates will try to clear out. Zero will successfully do so, and Player Universe caught on the teammate. Make it 1 more. Kogan naded off by door. Little to no contact. Austin goes forward in clash with a crossfire. That one's going no further. It's a free rifle, and the ace is stolen by Killer, but still detrimental for Florida Orange. And Eco, not much value found. And they realize that B side's just as difficult as the remainder of the objectives they're struggling to get success over.
just one around there. Obviously, I mean, Florida Orange doesn't really have the utility, or better yet, doesn't have the weapons to really just be swinging down those smokes onto a B site, trying to take those fights. But it was their best shot considering the guns that they were working with. A bunch of stingers. I mean, you're wanting to play for that close quarters. You're wanting to kind of force the opponent to have to swing into these areas where your gun can actually fight on fair grounds. But I mean, it just the actual approach to getting there just wasn't looking too hot. So they're going to go for the C side again. It looks like obviously a little more cautious of Killer from what happened in that last time they went for the C hit. But he's not going to be playing around that mound. They're going to be trying to clear that thing out as slow as possible. Thinking he's going to be inside that crate. We're at a point now where you've extended. You would have taken the shot, or better yet, you would have been killed, and he would have rendezvoused out. And it wouldn't really matter much anyways. But I'm just kind of curious to see what this default's going to look like. Because obviously, a possible another B hit, understand that maybe just kind of coping it up and saying if we had ourselves better guns, that hit could have been a lot more doable, or even better yet, if we're waiting on a full rifle round, maybe they're distributed a little bit differently. That makes that look a little more feasible. But right now, they just kind of want to give it up and go right back to the A site. And as I said earlier, I don't mind this, but you need to be holding it on the site. So I think you need to have more players here to contribute to the cause. And even then, without having it from the shadows while your smokes could be there, you're going to be missing a player for a pretty long while.
Put a player below rope. Have somebody sit closer to drop just on the opposite side of crate. Bring some level
30
of
seconds left.
contention on the objective. Play closer to site like you say, Dallas. There's just not enough here for Florida in this post round. Looks like they're going to try to create an option for it. Player universe will hide within a dark cover.
There.
Maybe they know there's a player going to be close. They don't spot him just yet. And because of that, it's an easy first blood. Right out the gates, the skates. The Roomba has to refrag. Slow on the reload and slow to keep them out of sight. What's going on here, Florida? Lucky.
One more.
Squeaks their way through. Thrash barely
player
keeps
standing.
Clash alive, but they'll still fall at the end. Only Lucky, and they're not so lucky. Florida Orange, look at what you can do when everyone's
Last
ready
round
to
before the
defend the
switch.
site actively. Your utility can only take you so far, but if you can't see squat, you can't shoot squat. And the dark covers are always going to be there for FGCU.
Yeah, everyone there to actually play the round out, everyone there to actually contribute, and that's kind of one of the big things that we've been looking for out of Florida. That every single one of them, I mean, together as a team, we talk about the kind of portable setup, that portable home they can make. Everybody's carrying different parts of the tent, and the thing is, if somebody's not there, it just feels like it doesn't feel complete. And at that point, you're giving FGC the lead to work with whatever, just because they're kind of working on the individual prowess because of those moment-to-moment timings. If they don't have to coordinate with anybody, then that means the only person they need to coordinate with them is themselves. And already that should be pretty easy to do, considering that every agent here is going to know your own kit. But already Killer opened things up with a tour de force, able to go ahead and get one blood on the board, and that's going to give you a bit of an idea that maybe let's not swing out towards this B side, and you're going to shift your focus somewhere else. But does that leave you to C, where that rendezvous could still possibly be put towards that back waterfall? Or does it go back towards A, and then, you know, you have to deal with that massive lineup where you're going to swing out right there towards main? There's a big decision to be made here, and I think C could be the right one, because think about that retake. That operator is going to be nearly as useful in a situation like that.
Also have already a turret set up inside B main. Nobody can lap behind you through door, which means that'll be a little bit easier and a little bit less wary of the backside. Having no utility behind them, though, which unfortunately does mean that this flank coming out from all the way back through attacker spawn is going to be very dangerous for Florida if they don't try to realize that soon. Showstopper desperately off towards defender spawn to make sure the timer is still valuable. Not enough time. They'll have to use the paint shell and now even boost packs to create more space. The three players coming from that same direction. It's only a matter of time. Here's their own showstopper. Down goes one more. Florida, step up quickly. Killer. Now hunting for a second. It's their third total in the round. No longer having the boomstick out. It was not required. 6-6 would be your halftime score. Florida, after that timeout, were lucky to get their one. Much better looking on that A site. But they didn't even get to test it this round. Back to C, back to failure.
Sides.
And FGCU can now test the waters for their own attack.
Yeah, it's that point. I mean, where Florida had the chance there, they found such an effective wipe towards the back of that C site. I mean, and even then, just kind of didn't take advantage of it, leaving the rest of their players in a 2v2, and even then more so, Zero took so much damage just during that process, being literally down to a singular bit of health just to kind of hold out for the rest of the round. So, looking at what's happening here, I mean, everything feels about all right. We saw the first four obviously go towards Florida Orange. They want to kind of carry things on and really continue the momentum, and that's just a little bit too much to ask for. So finding yourself with a retort later on, 2 rounds into that, seeing FGCU just kind of rebound perfectly back and ending off with some perfect equilibrium. We talked about these two teams. We said they were going to be evenly matched, but on the defense, I think Florida Orange, they're not going to look as hot. I mean, their retakes can be great, but it really comes down to how effectively can they find these first bloods, or better yet, who can hold down these sites better. I don't think KJ set up as much for that as the Chamber is, but I don't know. These retakes, so if they get around to that, should look good. There's Killer, able to do his job, hold back towards A main, and even in more so play that territorial game, understanding that this guy was on an island towards C for the entire of defense, so you can just leave him on the flank, and if you keep on trying that, you're going to get killed every single time.
That's their Sentinel's role, and they don't have as many options as they used to. They only have that one alarm bot now.
Spike
so
down A.
it's a lot more dangerous to leave Killer alone, but you're already in the first half, like you said. Why not continue to do so for the
Last
second?
player
Great shot
standing.
by Frisco. Needed to get target discipline, but at least get one for their troubles.
There.
Single player left standing. It's in clash
Spike
now for
planted.
the defense in Florida. It's not looking super hot for the very first round of this half. Better hope this is not a
Team
tone
ace.
setter.
Sure.
There's not even a shot to connect there. Skates. Body shots. Makes the aim go awry. And you have no chance after it. 7-6 for FGCU. And we're already seeing glimpses of how their attack has success and their discipline of actually having a flank watch despite it only being the very first round.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not thinking that we're going to see a flank come through from Florida every single round, but whenever you're going over to the A site, it's kind of a no-brainer for the Chamber. I mean, you have that long range, as we mentioned, right there through A main with that headhunter, and then you just switch over to whatever gun that you have for the close quarters whenever somebody tries to go on that flank and push that actual fight towards you, because you can take both of those fights. So, I mean, it's that point where if you go to the A site or the C site, that's where your Chamber's going to start to excel. And I think that's where we're going to see FGCU put a lot of their emphasis on, because he just can't do nearly as much over towards B.
Rotate as they get a lot of information. The players are on the A side. They don't like what they're seeing, so they'll cook up something new on C. Killer's already found a lot of pertinent information. Assuming they saw somebody. I think the smoke billowed in the wrong direction,
There.
and so they're very careful of the idea that somebody's inside of cubby or waterfall.
Spike
That is
planted.
not the case. But with it dissipating, they'll look off the other direction. Great flash to create space and opportunity.
One
for
enemy
two.
remaining.
Wanting more, and they'll find it. 4 players removed from the equation for Florida Orange, and here's that flank. It's just Kogan. Can this be flawless? And it will be. FGCU will carry every single weapon. And Killer, we talk about the value a Chamber brings Dallas, and being able to have the Headhunter and save some credits. Honestly, spin them going into round 3. If you don't die in first and second, you have the money. Meet and match with the rest of the team.
Right. I mean, knowing that the Vandal there and even Killer being the one to hold on to a gun, yeah, it make a little more sense to buy for somebody else possibly here. But no one with the Headhunter
there.
available, I mean, you're never really
Right there.
stressing having a real gun too much, just because, I mean, if you're playing longer angles, and especially if you're the one on flank watch 9 times out of 10, you're not even really thinking about what you got to do to even kind of have that pressure on site. By the time you get there, if you have to contribute, more than likely a player's going to be dead, and you can just scavenge their weapon in the meantime. But one big opportunity here will be opening up, finding that first blood. We see this Headhunter, we see the peak, we see the player. We don't see a kill, which is totally fine. You get a lot of information, like you know, the reach and the raids over towards that B site. That's at least 2 players, worst case. So everywhere else you go, if you can just overwhelm the numbers, you should have the advantage and really just going to draw that thing out.
This is perfect. Killer will even still contest off towards B. They know that there's a lot more utility
up.
being expunged to buy time on the A side. Killer wants to step forward and pay the price. That's the distance for a judge is absurd. The Killer will have to bite that bullet quite literally. That stun does not connect to M-Clash. A little bit off. The attack will have space into the B side. Turret in the corner. He cleared away fairly quickly. Skates will hold a lot closer with a judge, making sure Heaven is not an option. Waterfall also held by the KJ now for Florida. They'll have to clear out door. Zero, it takes a little bit longer to clear that away with that Spectre. That's a Roomba that's wasted this round for the retake. As a concussive blast comes out for Frisco. Flash as well. Will this hit Skates? They have no idea
Last
what's going on.
player
What are
standing.
eyes, he says.
Wow.
There's now only one player remaining in the post plant. It's Uber. Smoke over the top. Uber dealing with Zero. No chance to keep them off of this defuse. It's going to go forward. It's going to be a solid round for Florida Orange. But that should have never been as gorgeous of a retake as it was for the side of Florida.
Yeah, you got more than enough bodies there to throw at the problem to kind of just go ahead and find yourself a solution. But even then more so, keeping all three of those bodies in that kind of retake scenario is pretty darn nice. But I mean, looking at how things are going to go forward, you do see the full bias coming out from more and more players now. Zero being the one a little bit lackluster, but we already saw that. I mean, buying yourself a judge is been a more than feasible option here, considering that we see how slow these teams are kind of going for these trying to feel up the map a little bit, salt themselves out. So it really comes down more to the FGCU and their approach to this map and this round specifically, which obviously one was just kind of run it down the A site, and we see one of the players really taking a hit for that.
Flash will find yet another first blood for FGC, or sorry, for Florida Orange off to FGCU. Try to claw any sort of success back, but it is eluding them quite swiftly. Two players remaining. Killer with a wall bang attempting to remove the breach from this point of congestion. Orange just feeling a little bit more congested than anything else. They can't stay safely out of the dark cover.
One enemy
They'll have to wait for
remaining.
Killer's flash. Oh, sorry, they'll have to wait for Uber's flash so the Killer can go for a frag, but has to sacrifice instead. 2 kills for Killer, forced to, well, fight the flash instead. And as quick as the flash, they're out of dodge. They don't want to contest Killer whatsoever. They'll let Killer get sight. They'll let them go for a plant. A retake with 3 is much easier, knowing where the player is planted and where they're currently standing. Zimclash may be aware of the possibility of a rotate
30
out through
seconds
defender's
left.
spawn. Down to 25 seconds. You're going to have to start to commit to something here. You have the option of C or B if you can get there, Killer. It looks like they want that B site. Waterfall cleared. Player close corner. Can Imclash get the frag? They will. Florida, they struggled in the end of the first half. Didn't get the first 2, but have looked clean since.
I like the decision making there. I mean, you don't have the utility to really clear that thing out. You just got to go for the raw swing a second time as fast as possible, because otherwise that Echo is going to throw a dizzy at you. Going to throw a wingman. Has everything inside that arsenal to go ahead and make your life a living nightmare. But I mean, going ahead and call this timeout here for FGCU is a little bit interesting.
You haven't even seen a rifle defense of all 3 objectives yet. You've only seen B and C rifle defenses. Why call it when you're lacking information to the A site?
I'm not sure. And even then, I mean, you can already see that Florida's kind of pinging that thing out, understanding. I mean, that could be one of those opportunities. But even then, better yet, you see FGCU trying to go ahead and get a read of what that A site may kind of look like. And while I was with you, I mean, kind of understand that now. It's just kind of like, really? It brings that same question where I was at the point of thinking that they were just kind of just going to go ahead and start refining things and just kind of understand that B and C execute, and kind of more importantly, what those holds are going to look like in the post plan. And then afterward, just kind of leave A as a bit of experimentation. Leave it there as a last resort. But they're going ahead and pinging it. I'm with you on the fact of you haven't hit that once yet. And the one time you did try to go for it, I think it's uncharted territory, just because while they've attempted it, the biggest thing here, I mean, they went for it on the pistol round, no? So, I mean,
they've only hit it on pistol rounds.
I mean,
they
have an
attempted
idea
to
of
hit it in round
defaults.
3 and then had to rotate to B site.
And last round they attempted it, but Clash was there and able to find 2 kills off rip, and you're just not going to keep pushing that for no reason. But I don't know.
I don't like it.
It's
I don't like it at all.
definitely interesting for sure.
I like that FGCU were obviously formulating a strategy, trying to find what would work best. They were always looking for the next best step, the next right step. They just don't know what's going to come back at them. Showstopper, that just floods everyone from Florida away from the site. They don't want to have to deal with that at all. Prowler also goes to drop. You have Blast going to drop. It's just ensuring that everyone from Florida is away from the objective. Take drop. Rolling Thunder back. I don't even think that hits a single player on the side of FGCU. Doesn't get all of tree. That's a poor placement for that ult. It's good shot placement for Austin. Trading out the frag. Lucky Vandal for their own.
Last
But
player
Phantom
standing.
lining up 3.
Yep. Push that
Frisco.
out.
It's buttery clean. And there's just no way for Austin to keep that denied. Tally up the ult back. You may have missed this one, but you're halfway up to the next.
Yeah, just it's so odd of a decision-making process there. I mean, obviously, just calling the timeout on an eco is already just an odd start. Then you see the follow-up where they're saying we're going to go to a first site that we just don't really have all the information we need on, and we're going to go for a full investment here. Even in better yet, investing a showstopper. While they did have the discipline to slow down and not put all 4 that were available to them in that round, I mean, still, it's awkward nonetheless. Florida with an outstanding recovery there, able to go ahead and just kind of pop that Rolling Thunder. Didn't get it to player, but understandably so, giving them the confidence to actually press that W key. And I mean, considering the fights that were being taken, I mean, they're still winning these things more times than not.
I would have been much more mad at FGCU if they didn't have to go right back to the A sites.
Grenade!
I don't mind calling a timeout in an eco round. You need to be thinking multiple rounds ahead. That strategy needs to be attempted more than once. So seeing them do so at least shows that they weren't just saying, hey, this next round is purely what this timeout is for. We want to have something for everything. Thrash goes. It's going to miss the chamber initially. The killer will eventually be stunned and dealt with.
There.
Also means that Thrash is easily collectible because you have 0 inside of Cubby, and you've got even more success on site. 1 in default
Last
behind
player
square,
standing.
another in tree, and that's now the last in tree. Uber trying to open door to stay safe, able to secure one more, but that will be it. A finite amount of control for FGCU, and a final nail in the coffin, it seems, for that A-sided take. It has failed twice now. I do not foresee FGCU attempting that anytime soon.
Even then, again, I mentioned that Florida is going to look a lot stronger just on the retakes.
go back.
And they are taking so much time to set those up, which I just have to appreciate. Knowing that FGCU, it all comes down to instances. And as I said, just kind of choosing those split-second moments, making sure to execute off of them, and then even then just taking those fights on those moments. And there's just too many variables when you're on the attacking side to expect that somebody be there, especially on that defense. The Florida is literally giving up sites just to play.
You want to play? Let's play.
You don't know if somebody's holding a corner. You can't really press that W button all the way back in a spawn to beat 5 players because you're just asking for death. I mean, that's some
Bring them
right
down.
off the back of a timeout, but you don't have one anymore. Florida is just waiting for these sites to be taken. Then they say we can just throw so much stuff at the problem that the solution is free, and it makes it that much easier when you find yourself an opening ticket like that. You don't care if 0 goes down. The dude had an outlaw. He did his job, and everybody else has something to still work with, including a lockdown. They really felt like it.
That's a nightfall. Creates a whole lot of options in denial for Florida Orange with that decay. Frisco is also very concerned for their ability to step in towards site and assist the remaining players for this retake. His killer lagging off towards B main, now stepping away, but still an unknown factor in the mind of Florida Orange. Last goes forward. No one tapped by this for Florida. FGCU have full control of site, and I think Florida has realized there's not many options ahead of them. They need to draw to the objective and fast. M-Clash will set up Wingman to it. Player Universe able to remove 1, but they can't keep Wingman safe, and there's no value found off that utility. Somebody has to step out of the spike. You've got to already be tapping this. There's nothing there.
1 enemy remaining.
It's a round loss finally for Florida Orange. Some success for FGCU, but look what was required to do it. Ult after ult. Successful frags. You had to take an outlaw up through stairs to even get the kill to pip up that ult for Austin. You had to play so hyper aggressive, which was so different from your last 2. Maybe FGCU have found a formula for the A site, but don't keep hitting it. Stop putting 4 players in A main.
No. I'm going to do my own thing.
No, we joke a lot that, you know, players hear the casters, we say something and then it comes true. They're not listening. Check their comms. They need to be in here.
I mean, they're finding something, which, I mean, that's a little bit of a shred of light for them to work with. But, I mean, I don't know. I would just try pressing W all the way into spawn, realistically. I mean, obviously, you want to get those fights down, you understand the objective. But, I mean, in a situation like this where you're already a number up, this is the point where you finally caught Florida kind of on the back end.
don't really have all the guns to work with, and by the point
Spike
you give
planted.
Frisco a chance to actually kind of go ahead
your
and
feet!
throw it away. Here it is. Yep, FGCU, you got the Rolling Thunder. You press X towards Waterfall. They just don't want to follow up on it. Two players that were stunned through it.
Even more stuns going off towards Waterfall. And that's the only place where two remaining players are for the retake of Florida. Zero wasting one of their boost packs.
One enemy remaining.
Make sure nobody can drop down below. Lucky holding opposite side of pillar. Has
Last
the head
player
placement there, but
standing.
Zero's too quick with it. The paint shell to buy a little bit of time, but the bounce is poor. You have to hit that next shot.
I diffuse things in
Uber
my sleep.
tapping. No chance, and Zero will fall back, collecting a Vandal for their teammates. Take escape back and away. Round win for FGCU and a tally up to double digits to tie this game back up. And ultimately, that defense is lost off of Kogan not getting out of sight fast enough and being available for the retake for that player count. Great boost back in for EJ Skates to ensure that.
Another one of those scenarios where, I mean, is FGCU just buying out the time of Florida Orange also going ahead and trying to figure out what missing pieces they have and just trying to salvage what they got for a retake afterwards. So, I mean, knowing that, well, they're looking good while things are even, they've kind of essentially, as you can tell, for the longest time now, I mean, they went on an absolute tear to hit that 10-0 situation, and now past it, what are you really left with? So, bit of an interesting opener here from Zero. Could have gotten shot down like a dove, but here we are, continuing along, keeping every single player alive. And
There.
especially getting a little bit of information here, knowing that A does have players possibly pushed up on. So do you want to take this fight? Do you want to kind of over-aggress there and see if you maybe find yourself something? Or do you want to change things up? Well, it's FGCU we're talking about. Of course, if they're set up for the A side, they won.
There's not really enough contention there. The only reason they were forced to let back last round off towards C was because you had a paint shell, you had to deal with the pressure from the breach, you knew there was a gecko that direction. There's a whole lot there. FGCU have felt almost none of that same level of utility expenditure from the defense of Florida. Due to that, they're willing to take a whole lot more space inside of A main.
I'll find
But even
you.
though they fight here, Logan's the only player on C, and if
30
they do
seconds.
manage to get that, they could be value, but there's the from the shadows for intel. Two players on Mountain to pre-place the
30
smoke.
seconds left.
Nano Swarm and all utility for your KJ if Kogan is not on the objective. No, it's an opposing corner towards default, and they'll
this
even
is
buy time of
suck.
the lockdown. This forces a funnel off towards B. They have to take this rotate. They'll have a perfect coming for it. Player!
Spike down B.
Wanting more, can't find it.
One
Out of ammo.
enemy remaining.
Detaining
10
one.
seconds
Young
left.
to get the second swing, but EJ's good for it. Player to the corner, aim clash. Great round for Florida.
Beautiful. I mean, just understanding, saying, even then you saw the rotate from a clash trying to go over to that C site, and KJ says, dude, this is a lockdown. Get out of here. They're not hitting this site. There's barely any time left. Go help on that B site, because by all means, if they want to push this, they lose the round anyways, because it took so long to kind of formulate a plan of where they wanted to be shifting their focus. And by the time they actually got the execute off, still, one thing like that, you chose wrong. KJ was the one player who could literally single-handedly stop your entire game. So there it is. Those 9 ult points being invested, but very much so in a good manner. Getting yourself another round, finally getting yourself a round after what felt like a long dry spell, and able to kind of follow it up on the back of what FGCU now is sitting inside of an eco with, and he's sitting on match point on the back of it. So I think Florida Orange, this is their game to win.
I mean, keep in mind that Florida Orange, even despite the losses they had, were keeping the rounds close. There's something that FGCU couldn't necessarily say in the first half when things started to get bad for them and they had to make that, crawling comeback. They've gotten away with a little bit more here for Florida. 3 players left for FGCU, still all prowled up towards A. They were initially defaulting in this eco. They left Spike in attacker spawn, put a player off initially towards Mound, B main obviously, 2 towards A. When you don't have the weapons to work with, you're not going to find a whole lot of emphasis in terms of aggression. You've just got to catch player off guard with that element of surprise. And M-Clash was not ready with the right luck in the right spot. Sheriff
30
connects
seconds
Kogan.
left.
Easy refrag for them. It's a solid performance by Florida Orange to say, we don't want to let you get this Vandal. We're not giving you a free ticket back into this round. But Kogan's may be claimable, but that smoke's slightly out of
enemy
position.
remaining.
And because of that, There will be no chance for Lucky to grab it. Uber forced to fall back, stuck inside tree.
Yeah.
No
10
chance for a
seconds left.
placement of this fight. No chance for a freebie kill either. Match point for map 1 of this series. It's Florida Orange to reach it
Match
first.
point.
Yeah, big sense there. I mean, going ahead, finding yourself a match point. We obviously knew that one was coming underway, but even better yet, knowing that FGCU just still doesn't have every single buy under the planet sun. I mean, you see right there, you got the judge on one player, you got the half armor from 2, and even then, Lucky doesn't have all the utility to work with. Or I do believe that has all the utility for this round specifically. But even then, still, I mean, knowing the next round, if you do even end up winning this one, you guys are not going to be looking too hot, and you're going to have to manage to have those players actually stay alive on the end of it. So, ultimates in their hands as well. From the shadows and the showstopper, there's things to work with, but not really sure if that's going to be enough. Big fight amount here to get things going, and it's already Florida's name written all over this round as they find themselves 2 and get out scot-free.
Zero somehow getting away from the tether, the boost pack saving not just themselves,
Face
but also
your
Frisco. Unbelievable success with that. Flash goes, but Frisco still wants to peek this. Almost finds some too, but it's not going to matter. It'll be Zero instead to collect their piece of the proverbial pie. But FGCU have taken a bit too heavy of a sacrifice in their intent towards sight. 2 players now remaining in a 2 versus 3 as the post-plant scenario starts to boil. And that's a poor look for Austin. The wrong direction. Now leaving only one on site. It's Uber. Sacrifice. Snackerfice. They'll be eaten up. No more chances. Florida Orange 13-10. Map 1. As we'll head on over to the second 3-objective map of Haven. We already saw a good 3-map performance here. Can Florida keep it up, or will FGCU find their way to keep it just as close and they be the one to etch their name for the 13th tally?
I mean, a valiant effort for what we saw out of Florida, but I mean, even then, better yet, I mean, just seeing Florida Gulf Coast, I mean, knowing what they had there, they had opportunities, they had chances to kind of really get this thing running for themselves again. But I mean, just quite frankly, it felt like there were so many rounds that were just given up for almost little to nothing. I mean, you mentioned that A round, for example, even then, not just wasting a round, but wasting an entire time out just to be like, well, what's going on? Are we going to go to the safe site? Well, we haven't hit it yet before. This is the perfect time to kind of do some research, right? What research? You have no evidence. You have no sources. You have nothing to work with besides a singular round, or better yet, sorry, 2 rounds. One which was a pistol, one which was obviously a round where you got kind of absolutely slaughtered off rip by a singular player who wasn't even stationed at that site, because once he got those kills, he rotated to B. He didn't even stay around the area. So, I mean, shifting forward and see what you're working with. I mean, FGCU, that wasn't their game to lose per se, but I mean, even more so, seeing how they found that catch up, how they got themselves back to that point where it started with the 4-0 and it's 6-6. You're saying, okay, maybe this is going to look a little bit better. But even then, I think honestly, they press W towards spawn a little bit more when you look at that kind of kit that we're seeing in the likes of Florida. You got to catch them off guard. You got to do something crazy. You got to do something to surprise them, because like I said, every single bit of their kit, it's an instance kind of thing, and they're never going to expect that kind of situation. They're better, even more so, not going to invest utility just for the sake of variables.
Hey, you're talking about formats. This, I know it's collegiate, but this isn't a college essay. We don't need MOLA. We don't need APA. We need ABC. We need success in a format that works in all 3 sites. And I just wasn't seeing enough of that. I could say for either side, but it was mostly apparent in that second half. And that has to change for Haven, because while you don't hit B site often, it's still ultimately valuable to your roster to make sure that you're poking every single side of that bear, so they don't know which angle they have to look on the defense, which site they have to put most of their setups on, and how they want to play it. Will Haven turn out any differently, or will Florida find themselves still reaching 13 first and close the series 2-0? Time will tell, but before then, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Be right back with Map 2 on Haven. Well, Dallas, we already saw a pretty rough map for FGCU.
sure did.
Scoreline is still.
God.
He's okay. He's
Nah, yeah, I know we're on broadcast, but like, man, I'm sorry y'all had to see that. What is going on?
I feel naked now without my headphones. Those on over the top.
I
look
forget you have
normal,
IEMs
okay.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of wires to deal with at any given point. We saw an obviously fairly rough map. Well, the scoreline didn't really reflect that, Dallas. I mean, 13 to 10 is not that bad at the end of the day, right? But it's still playing wise was rougher than the scoreline indicated, especially when it came to that second half in the lead that you had to come back and crawl back into in the first half in general. Florida coming out on top. They're happy with that. But Haven is going to be a different beast, especially when it comes to your agent selection. We did see that raise and fade combo that I had kind of alluded. We used to see that a lot on Haven towards A on your defense. You would toss the tether, you'd clear out with a nade. That was almost always a guaranteed kill if anyone was inside of A main when pushing. That has been on the back burner for quite a while.
Right.
But considering they brought it out last map, who's to say they won't do so again? Maybe they don't have to change their agent selection too much, but I think we'll probably see something a little bit more default for this.
We also saw hover over the neon for both teams, or
Please.
more specifically, we also saw Vise for a second, but I don't think anybody's really gonna be bringing that yet. I mean, I haven't been playing Valorant a lot here lately, so I haven't seen, and even then, I actually missed Vise agent contract, unfortunately, so I actually got to use Kingdom credits. But I mean, seeing what's happening
Game Pass
here.
now.
Oh, true, true. I'm not gonna have it forever though.
It's true.
I only have so much money. But
You get bonus experience though with Game Pass as well, though, so you
that's
can
true.
get that pass faster for
right.
Vise.
See, we're talking about more benefits for Riot Games than Riot Games themselves.
Yeah.
So if you ain't got Game Pass, don't worry about it, because all of y'all probably play Valorant enough where you don't need it. But
Yeah, I surely don't.
but seeing how things are, obviously, Haven, and we're seeing the Jet on both sides. I mean, it is the same exact lineup for both ends of the spectrum, and it's kind of crazy to see because it's just like we've seen Neon being brought out even then by lower end teams. So I'm thinking, you know, even then, these guys who I feel like are much better shooters should be able to kind of understand the prowess of that character on this map, what she provides, because it's not like Lotus where you have kind of transfers between these sites over and over and over again, just kind of through the middle of the map and a lot of walls where you can just kind of break through like the Kool-Aid Man. But here, you have to literally backtrack yourself, go back to spawn, and then route around somewhere. And it just feels like if you're trying to go for these rotates or these slow plays, that's the only character you can essentially rely on to get there in time.
There's only two things you can say about, you know, a mirror composition default for Haven. One, it's boring. The other one is me. It's just dull. Seeing it fall every single time to this is just a snooze fest. And if the players like it, that's okay. But as casters, we know we hate it. Even Bolby, observer of Bolby. Snooze fest. The snoozer comps. That's what they said. It's pretty poor. Either way, very slow first round for Florida Orange. They want to try to get a first blood as soon as possible. C-Long's pretty dangerous to try to peek into. You can get control of the ult orb by setting up a single dark cover off towards
Revealing
Long. That at
area.
least gives you it for free. You have the chance to get the ult orb off towards A as well if that wasn't already collected by the defense. It's really just a battle of trying to tally those up as soon as possible and then try to squeak away as soon as you can a first blood to make the take for whatever site you do decide to take a little bit easier, as it looks like it'll be that A site. Spike cam is up. Kogan will
Camera
be
taken
spotted.
out.
Killer will make the call out for the roster. They'll have one player direct in towards site, but it'll be a little bit too late. That does not seem to bother them at all. They still want to extend forward. Austin, maybe you should have stayed back towards Hall and played for the retake, because that was never going to work out when a paranoia was still on the table.
Right. I mean, already Florida Orange have themselves a lead when it comes around to these player numbers, but even then, kind of possibly being able to
30
lose out on that
seconds left.
pretty instantaneously with all these shots,
One
the
enemy
players
remaining.
dropping out with things, and even then, a very, very clean closure to work with. I mean, it's a nice little bit of a round there to wrap up for
Keep using my vision
FGCU.
to
We
an
talk about
advantage.
over and over again about the A site, so I'm not going to mention it. But I mean, it doesn't even really count as a retake. I guess it's like with a down. Who knows? But that's that. We're
Doesn't
not
help
going
the
to include.
statistics.
Yeah, it doesn't help that statistic anymore. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's round number one. You can't really chalk it up too much to anything just yet. You can't really let it get to you. But FGCU, I'm happy to see that they finally get themselves a lead inside this series, because they were playing on the back burner for Lotus for the longest time before they even thought about getting themselves into a tie scenario. We saw it at the 6-6 and we saw it at the 10-10. And it felt like every single one of those times, it was just so late for them to finally accumulate something that, I mean, it was just enough rounds for Florida to kind of understand what's going on here. So, I mean, I want to see this game go in this direction. I want to see Florida playing from the back end. I want to see them playing from behind and seeing what they do and how they manage to catch up. Because, I mean, they don't even need a string of rounds to catch up, but they'll need a string of rounds, obviously, to get ahead once more. And I don't know if their strats are going to last that long or just kind of how they manage to play out these rounds.
Austin, waiting for anyone to pick towards long, and a wise decision, I would say, for Florida Orange to avoid it. I know something's going to be brewing up for FGCU in terms of that sideline, whether it's C long or A. It would take a shorter angle and decide and pray that their pistols can bring down something. Killer alone on C side. Utility has been cleared, but Zero will be punished for it. As well as that player universe, nobody finding any kills for Florida Orange. Despite the law-free momentum that Classic can give you, it surely showed it was free in this round. 2-0 start for FGCU and Florida. You get no free credits here. You didn't get a plant in either round. You will still be hard-pressed to buy full kit, full utility heading into round 3 with armor.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, obviously a flawless round 2. That's just, you can never really estimate what exactly that could amount to over the course of the game. I mean, you save all your credits, even then better yet, the guns that you're carrying over, and Outlaw being one of them, a Guardian being 2 of them, the Bulldog also, you can't sleep on that Joker. But here in a long lineup, we talked about that Outlaw. Is it going to take place here? Is it going to have an effect? And they're not even really setting up for a long. We're just seeing orbs being kind of collected here from Florida on top of a first blood on your jet. So good looks for them thus far.
Spike in place to main for Florida Orange. They want to make sure nobody's holding that longer angle. They know that Outlaw or something along those lines was there previously, though it's now in sewer and down. I just want to make sure there's no extra chances, no extra shots. Spike has been left behind. That's why you leave Kogan there in the first place. That is a wall bang of all wall bangs. No, sorry. That's just a crossover towards Link. No smokes were placed yet for Florida Orange. They didn't even have to worry about those sight lines. And FGCU, you're going to be hard-pressed to try to figure out what you have to do to make up for it. Dark Cover finally goes down, and Lucky will deal with the jet up top, but Skates is now by their lonesome on that A side of this map, but has no assistance. This is a very slow rotate in for Cypher. One player gong, a lap at round 2. Clash. This is a much-needed kill for Killer, even if they lose this round. Make it costly. 2 rifles down would be major. They'll hunt for even more. Player behind Gong. Spy cam. Oh, and it's a beautiful time swing for Player Universe. The gong rings out as the headshot sings. And Kogan, the slightest shimmy step to the side, and the wallbang headshot to finish. Florida finally net themselves a round win.
I mean, obviously a bit of a time coming, but I mean, you won the round and seeing how things started off, everything following that, you're just supposed to kind of play the game and let it shape up to what it is. It's just a little unfortunate when you see FGCU take a couple more kills in that process, considering what they were dealing with and knowing the kind of guns they had, especially those 2 Guardians. I wasn't even really thinking about the Outlaws, but I mean, even then they still have a purchase to work with, but this one's going to be really unfortunate if they do end up losing it, because this round, as you can tell, all the credits are in triple digits. Not really much to work with. Doesn't have much of a cushion to play off of. And consider that you had a 2-0 start with flawless in that second round. That's the only thing affording you this buy in the first place.
Cage triggered. Second layer of a cage will be placed. Quite affording a buy, and what's giving you the chance to do so. And that will matter if you give away the weapons too early. DJ Skates is jumping around for information. If they get halfway down long, that'll be a pretty easy audio cue to pick up, as they're also watching with the spy cam. A couple hops and a skip. Maybe enough for Florida to say, we know there's players on site. What could they possibly be bringing? As that's a bit too far of a jump. A little bit too slow for Kogan to be able to take the shot necessary to get that free first blood. Austin has been spotted. Player Universe gave the pit, maybe the audio cue for the jet passive of being able to float a little bit longer. Stunned, forced a tailwind out that was already queued.
Shadows traveling.
Florida Orange do not like that A side. They'll rotate, and this is because Clash is already deep within C side, just didn't have it for free.
30 seconds left.
Killer's on tubes is unanticipated. Kogan now through garage will need to play for the exit for the rotate. That means every player stepping into sight will have to deal with Killer, and it was almost too slow for Zero. Frisco will survive
Spike
because of it, and Kogan does get their one trade needed on that rotate in for this post plant.
3v4 kind of situation here. Definitely doable for FGCU on the retake, but I mean, I think the biggest concern for them is just knowing that they're not going to have the money in the next round, and even in with just the numbers already not looking too hot for them, and knowing that even this kind of feels a little bit uncharted. It's just going to be way too much to really get going, especially with Zero already last things around, diminishing that down to 2. Last 2 remaining players being on site towards the back, but now with the numbers still panning out, you're just biding time here. You don't care about getting this kill. You just want to get that round win, because keep in mind, Florida has the money for next round. FGCU doesn't. So Austin's going to try to get out, have something to work with. Kogan doesn't care if they die in the process. They know that, well, look at that money. We're all good. Let's run this thing back and let's get ourselves another one. And even then, looking at the difference inside of the ultimates as well, a Rolling Thunder versus a Neural Theft. Florida wants to be able to push these sides. Florida wants to start that timer countdown. And even then, with that ultimate available, you can essentially get that for free. Not that they're going to use it in that manner, because nobody really does. But, I mean, when it comes around to the post plant, you're just doing nothing but buying a good couple seconds off the back of it.
A lot of teams play Haven attack very slowly, and we're seeing that right now from Florida Orange, and I love it. The downside to that strategy, though, is that a lot of defending teams will vie for map control and whittle their way through some flanks, set up for some, you know, quick and hasty post plants. I would say cheeky endeavors, but that doesn't seem to matter too much. You have that Cypher, you have that tripwire from Kogan, and Kogan has been so big already for Florida Orange. They were the 2 top frags, Killer and Kogan, your 2 Sentinels, so far heading into round 5. Well, EJ Skates does get a shockingly free kill with the Sheriff shot to the head, even spotting Kogan's retreat down into sewer. It's not the best spot for Florida Orange. They'll throw the rifle back. They couldn't get up on top of box. Would have been quite nice for it. They just want to get that rifle away from the possible loving hands of FGCU's defense as Kogan, with the team, pushed them through into sewer. Maybe they don't realize that they've already stayed there. The call that has been made for the rotate. Kogan, timing could be perfect. One more step and there may be enough. Oh, no shots. I don't think EJ Skates saw them either. It could be close. They're still watching and waiting.
I have an idea.
Maybe a second Sheriff shot. There it is. Headshots are easy for EJ Skates. And now a Hunter's Fury to top it off. They know where M-Class is. Can this next one hit? No. 3 versus 4 with the death of Lucky. 13 seconds remaining. The spike will go down, and the retake has to come forward in a thrifty round for FGCU. Shots from Zero. Down goes Uber. From up in heaven, you're stunned. Will you survive? It relies on the crossfire from Austin from Walkway. One more from the blades. Not gonna hit. It Skates. Here's that flank. The map control attempted, but that spike's planted to the other side. There's no chance for Player Universe. Just save the Vandal and get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah, I mean, really can't blame me there. Obviously not the best case scenario. I mean, considering you're in a 1v3 situation, we can see those pan out time and time again on Lotus, but looking at the entryways into these sites, they're just way too much of a funnel where you just cannot really chance that. It's just way too easy to really get those hits off. And I mean, knowing that even then better yet, when you got cross sets, and I mean, even than just one player, it's a nice, easy way to just kind of absolutely clamp them in that next fight. So already Florida once again being put on the back burner here. Not really the best economy to obviously bind around like this, where I feel like they could have with the half armors, but they've at least managed to get something together. A couple Guardians to play with, and I think it's be enough to at least find themselves a possible push. But I mean, they're still looking better long term, seeing how things are going, but investing that Rolling Thunder last round and not really finding much off of it, they do at least manage to find themselves a first blow, which is going to be really good of at least recovering another weapon and getting some upgrades into play.
It's just not realizing how deep the rabbit hole goes, how far their shoulder goes in that angle. As Austin had their tailwind queued, it will go away. And the walk back, maybe a walk of shame for Florida. I think they have plenty of pride. Getting that first kill and getting out of there unscathed in the process would be plenty a happy position to stay within. Trapwire is put up well here. If Killer times this perfectly with that spy cam for information, they may be able to get a freebie frag, but it is a shock dart to help expunge the dangers of that long take as a play through garage for Zero. Flash out through space. Killer, there's no way you still get the shot to Frisco. It's an even trade, but Florida's still coming out on top with Player Universe, taking out their
player
doppelganger. A third to the
Spike
puzzle.
planted.
Hunting for one more. It's all the way back through C-Long.
See ya.
Rips the life away from Kogan. Player Universe not far away from the second one to fall here for Austin.
Blocking sight.
Extend forward. There it is. Finishing the job, but they'll be finished right afterwards.
So good at just rebounding. Both these teams are so good at rebounding, so good at answering back, even when things look like they're down. So long as it's at the slightest amount, it just doesn't concern them in even the smallest bit. Always managing to say it's not that big of a deal. Just play the game per usual, and always managing to just scratch something out, which can just create a massive domino effect. And obviously, the first one that we saw there. First blood, that entire round out, you could say, came down to an exposed shoulder. Just getting an upgrade and just keeping that thing rolling over and over and over again. It's just outstanding to see how Florida's playing this thing out. But obviously, FGCU, they've had themselves a lead. They hit 3 first. Now they have an operator on the field holding down that A lane, expecting something to maybe come down. But even then, it's just not really going to come their way. You set them over towards A. That operator's being stationed on C. It's not going to do much work for the retake. And honestly, this is at that point in the game where you've made the 4,700 investment to say, all right, we've now made this a 2-site game. Unless we do want to go ahead and hit through garage. Well, they knew an operator being over towards C. They say B or A is going to be a better bet. And I mean, every single time, I mean, you can gamble to say that teams are going to choose A way more.
Yeah, especially talking about the versatility when you pick up that operator. Changing out, interweaving site choices for you'll place the boomstick. You do the same thing with your sentinel. Wisen up in this round, put the boomstick off towards C-Long, move that sentinel to A. Typically, this is where your KJ utility will lie, and the sniper can be just as valuable, especially with that trap area placement over towards Long. That could zero in a very bad spot. They didn't have the utility to destroy
30
it.
seconds left.
That gives the information for that free first blood. In-Class will even stick the plant for just a moment, realizing a spy cam will pip a
Spike
teammate. Doesn't get to play
down
with a spike, a little less value than it could have been, but still solid for FGCU's retake chances. Kill it from up in
enemy
heaven, now
remaining.
finding a third kill, make it 4. Once the fifth.
Go.
And the ace is very much so on the table, but Player Universe
10 seconds left.
locked away from sight, nowhere near Spike, and stuck inside Hall. And Florida, there's just no chance for this. As FGCU realize they don't have to do too much. They don't have to get too greedy.
Keep
They
swinging.
can just wait things out. As Uber wants the rifle. Will the kill? Oh, Killer was almost to it. The FGCU will submit up to 4, and it is that back and forth battle we've been highlighting already into Haven.
But even then, that was one of the more detrimental rounds for even then FGCU. Sure, they won the round, but I mean, you see that they lost so many guns in the process where Florida Orange, I mean, they all died. They at least got their attempt, and you had that one player conserve it. So, I mean, even then, as you can see right here, they're saving up the money. They could even kind of buy to almost the same degree as we do see FGCU, but obviously you don't make an investment like that after losing that last round. But when you have 3 ultimates to play with on FGCU side, I mean, you're not even really concerned about that. The Blade Storm to work with, but the operator's still in play. You're not going to really see that come in unless it needs to be for a retake and you feel like it's that dire of a circumstance. But a Neural Theft also, which has, I believe, that hasn't been popped yet, has it? That's still the first one that we've seen being held on for earlier in the game. So I'm curious to see when that's actually be invested and whether or not even then investments, they're going to actually flood this B site. There it is. The Blade Storm coming out as well. Not really amounting to much. And
One
Lucky
enemy
just
remaining.
slipping through the cracks, running laps around this B site and killing anybody who gets in their way.
I get you got a hood. You're the edgy pivotal figure of Valorant. You are the shrouded, step-shaded agent. But there's no reason Lucky should be that clean with it. Sneaking into sight, Dallas. FGCU get away with a major round win. It was already tough for Uber in the back of sight. They get that free good kill off towards length. They fall back towards Gong. Great dash in from Zero to get control of upper platform. They can't get the frag they were looking for. Both sides trade stunts and concusses from the breaches, but Uber eventually goes down, and you lose Austin on the escape into sight. But that's all just a distraction for Lucky. And Lucky does what Lucky needed to do, taking down 4 in the round and cementing FGCU now with the first time we've seen a 2-round advantage separated away from the first 2 pistol rounds.
Well, 5-3, FGCU falls in their court for the task.
Deploying
Flame from
drone.
the back end when it came around to that last game, or at least the first half of Lotus. didn't really have much to work with, but was able to manage to get themselves into a 6-6 kind of situation. Going forward now, it's for them to find themselves not just equilibrium, but a lead. Get themselves into a 7-5, 8-4, better yet 9-3 if they can lock Florida out. But I'm not going to say that's much of a possibility seeing how they've been playing this game so far, especially on this round when they already opened things up with a first blood as they enter the A side. So this is good looking so far. Only thing to work with is from the shadows from FGCU side. They could find themselves maybe all the kills necessary, but they're going to once again, as I mentioned, on this A side, have to come out of these chokeholds and seeing how many players are still alive for Florida, aka it's all of them. Well, now that player universe, it's still just really good look. Austin now entering side, able to go ahead and find at least one of those kills exactly. Top, everybody else is one by one. You know what the last one is with an operator. It's gonna be awkward. You're up against a Vandal, but one shot. It's Austin with this net ring all throughout this entire round, considering that 4K, considering the A site held down, knowing this guy had to drop the operator, I mean, in the last one, it's still able to recover it there. You're just happy a teammate died, honestly. Otherwise, that doesn't look nearly as doable.
Austin's such in a bad spot. They were already deep in heaven when you had the rupture come forward. That forced the flush out for EJ Skates to go with walkway with the rest of the roster. Assumedly, Florida meant that there was nobody up in heaven anymore, but they weren't paying too much attention to the fact that Austin was still up there. Austin gets a freebie for the player rotating out towards short, towards sewer. They're able to secure one towards long. They wait up on top of Spike, or sorry, up on top of Lip for heaven, and they were able to get one more off the back of the paranoia. Then, Coco's low. It doesn't take too much to finish the job. A classic right click would have done anything. But Austin likes it with the rifle, and they like it with the boomstick as well. Collected at the end of that round, and going even further for this one. Push C, I dare you.
Or don't.
I would say don't. They're not even rotating the operator well. That's the crazy part. This operator has been on C almost twice as much as been on any other objective.
Well, I mean, there's two ways to play the operator. You can either station it on a singular side, especially on a map like this, when you have such a long, narrow lane like that, where if you believe in the operator, like I said, it diminishes the map down to 2 sites. So you can just allocate players anywhere else. Garage isn't even that big of an investment because, I mean, it's right there next to B. You could have a player hold both those sites if you want to. But, I mean, still, at that point, though, you're just really investing in A, looking to see what's happening there. But nobody's on A because Sova's pushed up now. I mean, it's been so darn long that, I mean, you're not expecting a hit to come through. And, I mean, it really just comes down to, or that second option that I mentioned, that maybe you could rotate it. Maybe you could put it somewhere here. Maybe you could put it somewhere there. Kind of go A, maybe you go B right there kind of on top and play that window. But it's just not worth it. Here. And you know that you can just define this game right back down to a 2-lane map.
10 seconds left.
You can do it. Like, why not?
Would have realized they don't really have the best chances possible at the losses of life from the boomstick down too long. About the diminishing of sights. Kind of diminishing player counts. They do have 2 players lapping back upon them. This is what I'm saying. When you have an attacking team that plays slow, a lot of the times you'll see defending teams actually go for map control, which is why you have that Cypher. You have the tripwires. Gives you a whole lot of value. And on top of that, I feel like when you have a Cypher in comparison to the KJ on Haven, you don't actually have to move the operator as much. So not only does it cut down the sight lines like that, but then your Sentinel can start to switch between B site and A site and be just as important on either objective.
Right.
It's just one small adjustment in the entire playbook changes. One weapon in the repertoire in the entire playbook changes. And seeing FGCU have the flexibility and have the chops, so to say, to be able to pull that off very successfully. Because look at how the game has changed ever since that operator buy. We had a period of time where there was not ever 2 rounds won in quick succession past the pistol round. Now it is a whopping 7-3 stat line for FGCU in this defense. That operator has been pivotal to that success. I don't see it changing anytime soon if Florida Orange can't get things working back in their favor. It's going to be a late timeout in the first half, very different from their second half timeout in the first map of the day. Maybe too late for this one. A lot like that one was maybe too soon.
It's also awesome just waking up. I mean, when you look at it, you have exactly what you want on the side of a defense for a map like this. Your Cypher and your Jet at the top. Your Jet having that operator in hand, feeling themselves there. I mean, obviously 4 of those kills amounted from a Vandal on that retake towards the A site, but I I mean, you look at the Cypher doing Killer, just doing what Killer's supposed to do. I mean, we saw that this guy just doesn't fall asleep at the wheel. He has been doing it consistently throughout the entirety of Lotus, and will do it here as well. But in another situation, we talk about that operator, we talk about where it's going to be stationed, what it's going to be doing. It's on the B side. It's not towards C. You're expecting that after that last round that Florida's possibly learned their lesson and won't double down, and they sure as heck aren't. But the smoke coming out gives you enough of an idea to possibly cue that rotate, get players right back over. But it's not going to be hit towards that area. It's not going to be pushing any emphasis over there. It's just going to be a massive default because with the money available, they're not going to be pushing that again.
The universe will highlight the tripwire placed on long. Assume there's a spy cam not too far from it. There's no real way to destroy that quietly. The team is static off towards B. They'll destroy it. Gives an audio cue. Forces both EJ and Kogan up. Sorry, not Kogan, and Killer up inside of Heaven. Try to look a little bit more direct in towards that A site. Great stun. It's not going to be enough. Uber and Lucky, tandem duo. This B site locked down in full effect. One more chance for Lucky to get two, and maybe a third on top. Icing the proverbial cake that is this round. And Austin will steal away the limelight. Boomstick for the final. And FGCU, their defense, it's titillating, Dallas. It is just a gorgeous foray in this first half.
Yeah, just a massive play here from the side of FGCU. I mean, just seeing how they're playing this map, it just feels so darn comfortable to them. And I mean, you can just tell that very much. But this is also just on the defensive side. We get to see Killer able to surmount to the same level of kills we see on this first half. We get to see Austin able to go ahead and swap to that van and keep that consistency playing. We get to see EJ and Uber have their opportunity in the limelight. EJ, I mean, obviously not doing any terribly bad, but Uber is also one of those players that we need to see with the breach. I mean, you're playing more of a kind of assistance role. Off your feet! Flashes. I mean, you gotta go crazy.
Make it to Heaven. Austin's desperate. Let's get out. Double cloud burst, can't escape, barely gets out alive. And FGCU even squeak out a kill in the process. Planted. 4 versus 5. Spike will go down, but the rolling thunder, it's a cooking, it's a brewing. And the moment this extends towards sight, the team will start to unfurl into the objective. Kogan down and Hell's been spotted there. Drop from Austin. Needs the Blade Storm. The timing's not right.
Stun your teammates.
Perfect cage. One more standing, and Frisco has a Hunter's Fury. They know it's here. The first tap forward. Austin rushing in. Knows they can get it.
Oh my God!
Shock dart over. They already got it to half. There's just no shots. And it'll be a 9-3 half. The curse may not even matter.
Switching sides.
With FGCU on a tear through this first half, hoping to keep the momentum into the second.
Such an unreal half coming out there. 6 in a row for FGCU to close things out. I mean, just an absolute masterclass of a defense there during that second quarter. But I mean, seeing how things are going, seeing how they're playing out. Florida, this is obviously their opportunity now to kind of come back into the game because it feels like a lot of their team, even though they're all, most of them are negative, it feels like they're all relatively close. They're holding their own. They're feeling confident. They're not letting things really shut them down, but their attacking side, they're just not able to play the same game that we saw on Lotus. We saw 2 entirely different kinds of plays and how they approach these areas of the map. And I don't even know whether or not they're going to actually go for those contributions. Zero feels very much more so a lot more aggressive than Austin does. So I don't think we're going to be seeing those operator plays. I think we're going to see more of an active roll out of that Jet, trying to kind of go for those trades, play around the map, go for those first bloods, over sitting here and there. Even then, as you mentioned, kind of playing the kind of operator that you station towards A and B, get a pick, and then get out of dodge. But, I mean, it all comes down to whether or not they can even afford that. This pistol round's going to lead a lot of hints into what we're going to be seeing in these future rounds. How do things go? Already with a nice little start, these down coming out. And even then trying to get the smoke off instead of just playing with that trade to double down. It's a risky play, but it pays off nonetheless. Austin can't sneak into side either. When you look at the rest of these players, they're just on an island when it comes around to A. In a 2v4 situation, Uber has a little bit of a get-out card with the flash available, but you can't hit those shots.
Last player standing.
Bit, of an unfortunate again and again and again. EJ able to go ahead and get some shots off, but it's not going to be enough. Pistol round goes into favor of Florida Orange, and this is a shred of light that not only they needed, but a breath of fresh air, as they say. We're right back into it. We
we get ourselves a good start, this second round, we can slow things down, we can talk amongst each other, and we don't have to freak out about anything because, well, while they're playing from behind, they need this moment of relief to really get their bearings for what's coming forward.
Yeah, you get this bonus right afterwards. Do not let FGCU eco you. Keeps them away from double digits. Even if they take the third, it sets you up for a 2-1, 2-1 split to catch up before even a chance for FGCU to close out the series goes forward. Gets you into that manageable position. It keeps you in that fight. And you had already played back and forth for the first 6 rounds of that first half. Things only got out of hand for the final 6. Just don't let FGCU start to build up momentum. Find it yourself. And that's a great way to start it off. Outlaw. Single body shot. Nobody has the armor to deal with that. Even if you do buy soft armor in round 2 after a loss, why the heck would you? It's going to one shot. Everyone's essentially at 1 HP. And they prove it right there. So no pressure off towards B. Spike's still been left towards attacker spawn. And Killer may be hoping that that Sheriff at range could do something. But even at that distance, it won't one tap to the head.
Got the spike.
You'll start to need to think about where else is available to you. One player down in short for A, another one back towards long. Player Universe also can just shrouded step away from the dangers of A long. They're really just hoping that their information will be given for free, and it will be. The Guardian reigns supreme, and Killer will be killed in the process, leaving just Uber alone, desperate, and stuck in a 5 versus 1 with the whole team collapsing. Flawless is exactly what Florida Orange needed.
Yep. Close things out. It's only a 4-round gap now. You're not stressing anything in this matchup. This looks like any other just regular game, honestly. You're not even considering 9-3 for that half. You're just looking at what's going forward and what can you do in a round like this. How many players can you shut guns out of because you don't even care about the next round? I mean, while it's obviously going to be great to win this one, you're not really beating yourself up, but that's what it comes down to. So we do see already stationed over here down the C lane. Zero may be kind of stationing themselves for a possible operator on this thing, just so long as he can get warmed up with his outlaw in hand. Waiting for the swing, waiting for players to peek, and able to go ahead and get an opening here. That's going to be some really good looks for this retake, especially if somebody wants to kind of go on that flank and maybe manage to pick up that weapon.
Nobody was pushing Garage for FGCU. I get the anticipation to just strong arm the attempt to sight, but this is just foul. EJ can have no chance to get the spike down. Shock darts, rupture. What else is there? Down to 50 HP, no armor on top. It's creepy if you just get one hit. The Outlaw may be overkill, but it will secure it. Florida Orange, 4 versus 3. Player advantage in their stead. But those rifles will translate quite well down C long. And no one has tried to prowl through Garage. Defensively, a rough spot to be in as Kogan falls to Austin's hands. One more towards Platt. Lucky gets a headshot, but doesn't finish. There goes one more for Austin. 3 kills, a possible 4th on the horizon. As Clash shot from the rear, Uber forcing the sight line. And they'll just pivot around the Platt. No chance in hell they're surviving this one. 10-5, still the damage was done, and Florida have to be happy with their performance.
I mean, there was a chance, but we'd have to pause the game and possibly DQ Florida Orange if that was one, because there would just, there would be a toggle in play. It's just, there is a chance. There's always a chance.
Check him PC, that would not be normal.
Brother just snaps and knows exactly where everybody is through every wall. But, I mean, seeing how things are going, and even then, just kind of how this is playing out. Expected Florida Orange to lose that one, but to go ahead and cut down 3 out of 5 of the guns that FGCU brought into that is just a very good effort. 10-5, you're still not really beating yourself up about this one. FGCU has come back from worse. They were able to string together 6 at the end of that last half. So when you look at the possibility of this map, so long as you feel at least relatively comfortable, you know that things are going to be doable. But even more so, do they expect these wild cards of 0 being closer up? That is
spike down A.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. That seemed a bit to the left. But
that was most definitely to the left. That is an oddity. Still, the success on site cannot be denied for FGCU. 3 versus 3 now in effect. Austin will even collect the operator and can play this for a post plant. Off towards short to keep Heaven, well, keep Heaven honest, so to say. Plant will go down.
Spike planted.
Uber will translate themselves maybe back towards long would be where I would expect with the util in hand for a breach, but I don't think they feel safe just yet to do so.
Shadows traveling.
Smokes will go down on a place towards short. They know the operator was there, so they don't want to give that sightline for free. Want to leave that direction. The areas from above. And recoil did get, adjusted, but not that much, man. 11 for FGCU, and right when we started to see Florida Orange get some success, be happy with something they got, brew up in the third round of the second half, it's fallen back away, and they're going to be in an eco round, stepping up for FGCU to get a possible 12th. Oof.
Rough days coming for you for Florida. I mean, knowing that already, if you even do end up kind of making this round look good and you can scavenge whatever, worst case, I mean, always you lose this thing no matter what. What is worth the cost of even kind of giving up a match point for something? I mean, there is no case for eco now. There is no case for accumulating ultimates. It is just pure raw gameplay. And yet Austin as an operator on the attacking side. And while it doesn't typically work, when you see that Florida's getting very desperate just to kind of manage to get these kills and find those first bloods, this is the worst round to try and attempt it.
Silent as can be. Really not enough noise being made for FGCU so that Florida Orange can realize which objective they should push for. Player Universe gets the sightline towards C long, and we'll try to notify the team as best as they possibly can as they'll fall back to a better angle to play for a retake. They do have the ult as well. That may be what they're heading towards.
Cage triggered.
Maybe pre-playing for the fact that it will be a rotate. Looking, he just plays down a billion pieces of Sentinel util. Maybe reading the scenario at hand and saying, this is likely going to be a rotate, knowing they don't want to play. Thank you, Dallas. They don't want to play against that Sentinel util and risk any of the weapons they have already with the advantage. Zero with the Guardian. Pressure early. It's not going to matter. Uber dices them up. And you put them up on a platter. Saute maybe for one more.
Planted.
Let's play Universe up in heaven. Had chances. 2 players spotted. Not a single sheriff shot connecting, and a majorly missed opportunity.
One enemy
that
remaining.
One will connect, but it will not matter. 4 versus 1. Blade Storm out. Frisco in heaven. They're going to claw their way down through the staircase towards Defender's spawn. They'll probably play to die to Spike here. Not give away a kill for free to any of the players on FGCU. This will be 12th. And map 3, a single mistake away for Florida Orange.
You guys out of that Spike too, though. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be a very, very big hill to climb here for Florida. I mean, not the worst case in the world. I mean, you've seen games that are definitely in a worse state, have been recovered, but I mean, considering the kind of level of momentum, you don't see it ever really be dismantled at the case. I mean, Uber being the only one really negative on the team, same thing with EJ, but I mean, they've done so much. Uber's got amounted to so much of the assist. I mean, you could attribute half the game's kills to this guy and the impact given, so it's not even a stressor whatsoever. But seeing what FGCU have to work with, one last round to play off of, possibly to close this thing out. Florida does have themselves a little of a bye and even in a pretty darn good start, considering they got themselves not the first, but also the second blood to get things going. But here's Austin dropping the operator, making the trade, understanding that he can't really play much of a kind of a back helping hand anymore. Already amounted to whatever effort he can really get with that operator and understands what his value inside this game is going to be. Keeps on cloud bursting everywhere. I just try to be taking one of these fights if possible. There you go. Finally getting one and understanding that even though he's only a pixel left, it doesn't matter. It's still going to get something.
Austin down to 10 HP. Realizes they can just play flank watch. No Sentinel utility to do that for FGCU, so they'll just rely on the player to do so instead. They can also have them late lap in through garage and find value for maybe a dangerous execute. Players are deep now towards the C site. Spotted is M-Clash, and Uber will remove their doppelganger from the equation that is this very possible 13th round. Skates, the duo on site with Uber
30
will
seconds
fall.
left.
And Kogan has no real
Spike
chance
planted.
to deal with the spike planter of Uber. And so instead, we'll have to wait things out for the team to rotate in with them. Austin in garage. Tripwire is there. It's not been broken, so maybe Kogan won't realize, and it's a free blood for Austin. Can wrap back towards C long. One in cubby, one in long, and you're a Jet. You don't have the utility to clear out that angle. You have to push this yourself, and a rolling thunder makes it nigh impossible. Stunned, praying, shots out. Last cloudburst expended, and Austin tallies up the final 4 for a 13-5 stat line in a major comeback, Dallas, in comparison to our first map tally.
Yeah, I mean, already going ahead, creating that even, I mean, just stat line in general, finding yourself a 1-1 here on the board. I mean, it's good looks here from the likes of FGCU to kind of find themselves a fresh breath of air, get themselves a map in the series, that we're going over to Bind. This is where things are obviously going to get interesting. We've seen the 3-map line out, I mean, already kind of twice here inside the series. We're finally going to something because there isn't another map with 3 sites available. But when it comes around to these 2 squads, this isn't something that we've necessarily seen. Florida, I want to say we've seen it in the past, but it's a new squad that's going to be new taste, going to be new agents, and even more. So I'm hoping to see some new compositions come into play because we've also unbind here recently. I mean, while they didn't bring anything super interesting when it came around to Haven, we did see some incorporations of, tried and true old strats when it came around to Lotus, like that Seas and the paint shell, like we mentioned. So, I mean, knowing that this could be something, I mean, already we see the Gecko, maybe that's going to be something to play here, but also we're seeing completely different lineups from the controllers. These Omen players are going to have to shift over to Brimstone. We're going to see some of these guys maybe go from a Devil Initiator, find themselves possibly now what's going to be that swapping over to a Viper possibly. I mean, there's going to be a lot more to work with, and even better yet, the Sentinels is always going to be a big switch up because Chamber is feasible here, and Killer could go for that route. Could also go for the Cypher once more. Could even better yet go for Deadlock because we have seen her being thrown around on this map every here and there. So anything's really a possibility when it comes around to Bind. So I'm ready to see it get underway.
Yeah, Deadlock is a major pain in the rear when it comes to Bind Dallas. Will that actually come forward? Time will tell. And speaking of that time, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. Do not go anywhere. It's the final map of this series. Who will come out on top, FGCU or Florida Orange? Stay tuned to find out. 10 to 13, 13 to 5, Dallas. Very different scorelines on still 3 objective maps. FGCU just decided, hey, we're tired of being so close to success. We're just going to take success. And their
Right.
6-round spree at the end of the first half, yeah, they cooked up something, and it is Gordon Ramsay levels of hot in that kitchen. Now love to see if Bind can be a little bit of that same taste and pizzazz.
Yeah, I mean, seeing behind, obviously, I mean, this is a map where you really start cooking, right? I mean, this is a map where you have so many compositions that can really be feasible to work with. You have all kinds of characters you can just kind of come into the fray out of absolutely nowhere. That's where we saw the kind of Yoru introduction in terms of the pro scene. This is where we saw Gecko really start to gain his popularity just because of how fast this map really goes. We've seen Deadlock being thrown in every here and there now. I would love to see, obviously, Vi's kind of probably take a chance to just kind of be thrown out there to some degree because this is where her spotlight, I want to say, whenever they were actually doing the trailer, where they showed kind of her potential for. So, I mean, seeing what's really on the board here, Bind, it's necessarily anything. One thing that we know is going to be guaranteed, though, should be a brimstone on each side. It feels like that's the one thing that has just never changed because of how fast the executions have to really be when you're hitting these sites. You need to have as many smokes as possible at the exact same time to just cover up as many sight lines as you can. And I think honestly, with both these teams, I'm not going to be surprised if we see it on both ends, but everything else is kind of a bit of a big variable because while Raze is good, I think honestly, no, actually, we'll probably see Raze on both sides too, because like I said, you could see Neon possibly here too, or you could see a Jet every here and there. But I mean, we saw them both play Rays on Lotus, and I think it's the same exact thing. This map just it feels like a necessity.
I don't think we'll see the Sentinels change up too much, though. I feel like if we're going to translate anything way back to map 1, right? Maybe you have that chamber, like you mentioned before we cut to break, instead of the Gecko. But I feel like Gecko brings too much value for your planting on your attacking side and on your defense for your flashes. Wingman with a great stun. That's really great to use down hall when
Yep.
you're retaking B sites, flashing out through sight. It clears tube, it clears back a tube, it clears all the way towards Octagon. There's so much value in that initiator. It's hard to see you picking up really anything else. Viper's been exceptionally strong. Sky alongside the Viper has typically been the 2 wombo combo you use off towards guard and off towards that Octagon side on B when you're defending. So teams will typically play those 2 together. You can see that locked in entirely now for Florida. M-Clash on that Sky. Kogan on the Viper. The big thing here, Frisco on the Sova? It's not like you need information that bad on the map of Bind. Typically, you just jiggle peek corners, get those first bloods, kind of prowl around like that. You have TPs for quick rotates when the team starts to rotate themselves, and you just play according to the utility that's bent that buys you that intel. So the Sova, maybe putting too many eggs in one basket, or the opposing side for FGCU, they're going a little bit more try and shoot, except for the noticeable lack of the brim. Fade can be exceptional on this map with Prowler through Hall, like I mentioned before, with the same we used to have for Wingman. But no brim.
Yeah.
In a chamber. Neither
makes
team picks a
sense.
Cypher, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one. Big
This
dog.
is, at least, you know what? It is not a mirror composition. And it's not default.
As long as I see like particular agents, I'm okay with a mirror comp. Like when I see a Gecko, like I feel like those are at least like fun to watch, or like a Neon, or you know, a Yoru. Like they always kind of bring some level of variety that you don't see. But I mean, even then, it always feels like there's some characters who just feel like, which I mean, I'll compliment the lack of a Brimstone, but swapping it for an Omen just, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I would have expected maybe it's swap out for just at least running just a solo Viper. Just because of how small this map is, how long that wall extends, just seeing the pure presence that Ultimate can receive. I mean, there's just so much you can really do with her that, I mean, I'm just shocked that covering essentially the entire map at the very start of the round, and you're essentially locking yourself out of that, just feels kind of crazy.
Talked about that play on B side for Viper. You can see the toxic screen's already been put up. It's able to cut off Octagon Garden. It's able to cut off Hookah. So being able to place that up at any point, whether you want to have your Sky pop flash out and your team extends once the wall goes down, or if you want to, you know, force them to have to step through it, so they have that little bit of extra decay to make the job a whole lot easier for your team to
armor.
have those crossfires. not having that when you switch to defense is going to be troublesome, at the very least, for FGCU. They'll start to lay out a couple smokes. You talked about how Brim was so good because you can place all those smokes simultaneously. You have 3 available to you, but you need to place at least 2 when you lock down that A side. That's all of your smokes as an Omen. Now there's a minimum of 15 seconds needed if Uber wants to play for default smoke positions on this A side. They'll need to wait for the second one to go, and they just send it. Now they don't have anything to close out the between of the Ready Night crates and truck on A. They'll have to go in quite literally raw to the objective and pray they can get these fracks. They're good for 2. Down falling is 1. It's Frisco with a ghost, and they'll even get 2 for their troubles before finally getting that refrag with the headhunter. Costly though it may be, it's finding that value as it can't hit here. Killer, that was a bit high. The team is struggling to get their shots to connect. Killer finally gets it. FGCU will find a successful round 1, but at what cost? And already I'm seeing a couple problems with that smoke from Uber.
I lose you.
Oh, I mean, good first run here from FGCU, even though considering that a couple of their players were pretty darn low, and even with that right click onto the chamber, I mean, he was basically one shot as well. You still have enough players to really make those trades and effectively get yourself the round win that you want, but still on the defensive side, you have a lot of expectations. Clash, you've been going for a buy on the Sheriff here. It's going to be a little bit bodacious, but I mean, hey, it's going to be something to work with. And the better thing about this map is you do get to save yourself a little bit of money while still maintaining a lot of pressure and efficiency. You see that even in the Bulldogs and the Spectres are coming into play. No Phantoms, no Vandals, no Guardians, nothing like that. Because, well, you don't need those to really feel good.
Satchel out. Satchel out.
Awesome boost packs deep into sight. Very well done to secure B. No contention for Fluid Orange due to the early losses of 2. Well, they have these plastics playing at a distance that's nigh impossible when there's a Bulldog triple firing in your direction. Same with EJ Skates inside of Hookah. Paint shells from 0 just say, hey, we know you're still here. Send the Roomba, close that gap, hunt for the play around this corner, and what could have been, maybe should have been, for FGCU, a flawless round 2 to continue to bring that point home. And the only weapon they dropped, I think, would have been a Spectre, which does not bring enough value. Or maybe nothing, because Killer didn't buy the previous time we saw the chamber in play for that bonus. He probably just picked up the Bulldog off of EJ Skates.
Right.
Judging by credits, I don't think that's the case.
I mean, looking and seeing what we're dealing with, though. I mean, after a round like that, FGCU carrying over a good hefty bit of their resources in the last round. You're not really too scratched up about that one. Even as I said, Bulldog, Spectre, very much feasible options on a map like this. There, you can use them at almost any round. But it comes down to what kind of setups do we see from the defense? Because obviously we mentioned no Sentinel on the side of Florida Orange. And honestly, when it comes around to a map like this, I'm buying specifically with how fast people are. A Cypher is just totally disgusting. Creating somewhat of a level of flashes off what could be Vise would be nasty. Deadlock, creating some stuns there. Just any kind of thing to slow down the process. Not even stalling or finding kills. Just literally slowing it down is all you need. But they're hoping Viper will do enough of that job. But I think, well, that's a possibility. You're also requiring a lot more out of your players in terms of hitting those shots.
Doesn't take as many, though. They step through those toxic screens. They step through the poison cloud. The snake bite. You got decay. You've got extra HP down. Makes the job a lot easier. Austin towards Kavi. Player Universe gets them damage, but wasn't able to finish. And that's where Kogan steps up. Swinging 2 hits. Spray transfer clean. And FGCU on this attack. Fish out of water, struggling to find impact. Spike will go down, but it's still flawless for Florida Orange till Uber finally gets their mitts upon Frisco. But now it's just Uber. Their life will be cut short nearly as quick as the rest of the roster. First round for Florida Orange, as you would expect, and they go through this quite cleanly, despite only having 1 player initially on that objective, and that being a worrisome point to make. Zero highlighting that approach from FGCU.
I'm just shocked we're not seeing a Gecko here, man. I mean, even then,
on either side.
Right, when we get the double initiator, Skates is running. I mean, we're running a Sky on both sides, which I feel like, I mean, is already kind
of. That's meta.
Cold.
That's falling in. That's falling in for the map of bind.
I mean, but seeing the Fade, seeing a Sova, having no Gecko, I mean, it's not even the potential of information per se. It's the fact that with how small these sites are, having all 5 players contribute to fights as Wingman's getting the plant down,
is just invaluable.
Yeah. Genuinely, Dallas, it feels like they were told one duelist, 2 initiators, a controller, and then said, we aren't going to tell you what agents you need to pick. Just make sure you pick this amount of these, you know, classes and categories of agents, and then just guess. It feels like you're so close. You have some parts of the puzzle, but you're just missing the right pieces.
Which last week we saw, I believe it was last week, we saw no Sentinel on bind, and it was ugly.
It
did not go very well. But I mean, can you really say Chamber filled those shoes? Because I mean, that was no Sentinel versus a Cypher.
Yeah.
Which Killer was discussing on the Cypher too, which just like shocks me.
Healing over here.
I mean, that was the top 2 frags up until round 7 in the first half on Haven, right? It was both Kogan and Killer. The Sentinels really carrying the pacing. Obviously, Kogan lapping and playing flank watch and just going for those single prowls. We saw the same level of impact last week on Haven. Where's your Sentinels getting the job done? Maybe hoping to see the same thing here this week then. Or that will hold true for Vine. Time will tell. Plant does go down. Alliance FGCU have cemented themselves onto this A side, but they're done so with a player advantage. Sorry, disadvantage. You'll need to clear out Lamp as soon as possible. Lucky's hiding within it, but you'll need to be more concerned about the raise and the sightline they have towards Heaven, but that's dealt with. Rinsed away is the HP of Austin. And Lucky, well, eviscerated just as quickly. 3 players left in that retake, and 3 still remain. Florida Orange will tie things up 2-2 in this game.
It looks early still for this matchup, but considering that we're already seeing a bit of a back and forth here, keeping things going. I mean, SGCU, who obviously opened things up, had themselves a pistol, got the round afterwards. But the rest of this game is, so long as the rifles have entered the match, it's now been nothing but Florida that we've been looking at. So obviously, we're hoping that this isn't a trend following forward. That last round was your real first kind of opportunity to kind of get the trade off, but it just wasn't there. So we see an eco once again coming out. But ultimates are going to accumulate over time. Chamber, I don't feel like it's going to have nearly as much of a presence in the attacking side when the ultimate does come into play. But Nightfall's going to be nice.
Fire in the hole!
Showstopper already in play.
Satchel out.
This is just absolute insanity. No real read on where they are. And even then, still may have not come out. Clash is still good for 2.
Clash has no right to get 2 there. The 1 is deserved, but the second's insane. As Killer, a freebie off with the Headhunter. Now having a Vandal to work with, their teammate at Uber.
B.
That's a long ballista shot from distance. The Hunter's Fury to collect its call. He'll pay the toll. 3 versus 2. Showstopper for Showstopper this round. Straight to the feet of AJ. And the head.
Done.
That's gone for Killer.
Grenade.
Not even a chance for the spike to go down. No extra credits for FGCU. We're reaching the state where they need to make sure they're able to buy nearly every round, and may not be an option.
Yeah, this is just unfortunate here already for Florida, seeing what things are running. I mean, seeing how things are going. It's the way it goes. I mean, the tour de force being implemented here for this next round. I mean, it's not really kind of an escape card. It's not really a get out of jail free card. It's something. It's a gun in a round where you kind of want to be saving the money. But I mean, I just can't really tell what else you're really working out for you. The front of the shadows is going to be nice here for possibly rotates, but I mean, this is one of those points where you look at the kinds of the trades off that you're getting. You look at the Brimstone, an Orbital Barrage, able to go ahead, close down, completely deny a plant, or shut down an area of the site on a retake, compared to I teleport and I see where people are for a couple seconds. And they shoot me and I go right back to where I was. So glad I saved up 7 rounds for that.
It's free real estate.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when a lot of teams use that on very wide maps, Dallas, to rotate spike really fast on time constraints. If they
you want to play,
you grab it back, you go B. This map is so thin, and you've got TPs for either side. There's never an issue on time.
If you ever hit the point in this map where it's you know, you don't hit a site by 30 seconds and you've already lost
Already
it.
done a
just 'cause,
billion
like,
things
dude,
wrong
come
prior
on.
to that. The Omen team.
Like, look at this right here. Round just starting, you at least get an execute onto A. Even if you go to the transfer to
Kogan.
VP and meet Kogan and absolutely slam you over towards Hookah, it's still like it was
Is that the Grim Reaper? Kogan.
Last
Zero now
player
joining in. 3
standing.
kills for Kogan for the round before finally being taken out of their position.
Spike
As the
planted.
recon bolt finally saying Sova be important, and it was. Zero from inside of Hookah. It's always 3 players left standing for Florida as well, might I add. They are consistent in these retakes, whether it's the pacing at which they're able to keep FGCU away from sight, which is greatly assisted by that Viper, might I add. Not just for the utility for Viper, but just Kogan in general. We saw this round with 3 kills. Or it's just a matter of they're swift on the take and FGCU aren't playing these positions well for the agents they're bringing to the table. No matter what it is, something's going to change for FGCU. I said they're not going to be able to buy every round. This round is where we're going to see it come forward. They're going to be forced into a thrifty, forced to eco or something. And while they have ultimates, they just haven't found the best use for them. Even when we have seen both a showstopper now and the tour de force, neither found jack squat on the attack. It's only been returned fire by more effective ones from Florida Orange.
Yeah, it's just round after round after round on this defense. It's going to be FGCU looking for just anything, and once again into the round where they open up, not finding much. Offset already going ahead and getting the spectator screen. Skates to join as well and fighting down, and now that thing is held hostage inside the A site. That just creates a massive queue for all the FGCU players to either desperately run out there and just try something. Maybe better yet for Florida, kind of go ahead and push through these smokes, take control of that ground, knowing that there's nothing but an Omen stopping them right now. Those smokes aren't going to last as long. They're going to take a little bit while to even kind of set up in the first place. And while Killer's trying to set up and maybe hope somebody overextends, I mean, there's really no reason. Surely Florida should have enough sense in this situation just to play it slow, but they still end up running into a couple players in the meantime, by making sure and ensuring this round is going to be a flawless, if anything. But
1 enemy remaining.
3 gone.
there's one left to find Florida sitting at a 5-2 lead, which the only 2 rounds that we saw accumulated by FGCU in this game thus far have
30
been off
seconds
the
left.
first round, which is a pistol round, and the following one, where they have a guaranteed advantage.
Shadows
Playing from a
traveling.
level equal playing field, or even from behind. I mean, if you can't play to that same degree that we saw of close, nitty-gritty matches, and I mean, I don't know what we're really in store for here.
I mean, just talk about the difficulties, Dallas, that we're seeing FGCU have on A alone. 1, player off towards barrel and backside cubby. What are you going to do about this player? Well, typically you just double brim smoke between truck and Radiant and then Radiant and wall, and then you would have no sightline problems there. Third option, even if you don't have that, is to have that gecko. Place a single smoke between the Radiant and wall. That gives your wingman free chance to move forward. And even if they get shot out and banged, you can then move forward safely to get that spike with your team taking short and start to claim control and get that plant down a little bit less deep within the Radiant stack for default, but still at that corner and in cover. They're lacking both of those. They have no effective plant. They have no effective space to claim on a site. And because of that, they're struggling. They're a fish out of water. They are failing to find the air they need to breathe. And it is a suffocating defense, and it's a default defense. Bar the Sova for Florida Orange. No reason it should be as bad as it is, but it is. And FGCU got a world of pain in front of them to figure it out, because this run, even with a bye, they can't head down short because the Viper's Pit is direct in their way. And the toxic screen, make matters worse, still ready to be used if they run to take the TP over away from B site, and they can place it off towards showers.
I mean, just seeing how this thing's lining out. Viper not being over by B side is a little bit concerning, but you do have a lot of players over here, and who's gonna get stuffed out? And that's
Spike down
that's
B.
so crazy. It's almost like, I mean, seems like Florida Gulf Coast does not have much of an opportunity here.
Last
Just
player
again and again and
standing.
again,
Oh,
they're playing
player.
the back end, and player is just holding this thing down. While I was looking at him earlier and just kind of thinking, all right, this is the guy who was able to hold down sites by himself. The universe has really turned up in this to say that he can do it too. So classic. I mean, all these guys are feeling
Bring
themselves
them
and firing on all cylinders where they just feel comfortable taking
10
easy
seconds
leading
left.
sides.
Yeah. EJ will opt to save the Vandal. I don't think your loser's bonus. What did we say it capped out when we found out it was three rounds, right?
3.
That's crazy, by the way. That's absurd to me.
We
Caps
lost
out.
5
It's been
rounds in a
capped out
row.
for a while. You will not be able to buy up this round. You save one weapon. You're kind of forcing the team to say, hey, we have a Vandal. We need to at least use it well. Did we buy soft armor and a rifle? Can we afford that? 3, I think, out of the 4 players that went out in that round cannot afford soft armor in a Vandal or Phantom. They'd have to go something like a Guardian or a Bulldog, in which case they maybe could buy full armor alongside it. I don't know, man. 6-2? 6 in a row again? This time Florida Orange, the proprietors of the team, to do so? And not at the end of the first half, the start of the first half. Where's the stopping point? And there's not like there's ultimates, Dallas, in hands for FGCU that changed the game. But Tour de Force doesn't find much impact in attack. Seekers failed to create space. You had already lost Spike towards long, and you had no ability to reclaim it anyways. The showstopper, that's been missing.
Well, Showstopper missed entirely the first time they broke it out. That's one thing. I mean, you had a player go ahead, hug that wall, right, lining hookah, and Austin just had no idea he was there, bypass, and didn't even took the shot over towards Octagon where somebody had already extended. But I mean, seeing everything else for FGCU here, it's not a whole lot. Nightfall to play with here, but I mean, it's worse than a Rolling Thunder objectively, just because the stun lasts longer than the decay does. And the only thing they're missing is just audibles for that second. I mean, they can still shoot just fine. RPM remains the same. But around like this, taking an eco. Oh my God. Simultaneously taking a timeout and an eco is always questionable, to say the least. I mean, it allows you to discuss some interesting plays of how you're going to kind of approach this. But I mean, you would have rather taken that, 4 rounds ago, where you have an actual full buy, figuring things out early. I mean, sure, you've accumulated more information leading into this round, further in the game, but is it really worth it?
2 rounds prior to my call that timeout. I don't mind eco timeouts, but you gotta, you gotta be much earlier on it. Keep in mind, there's only 2 more buys. If they lose and continue to lose, there'll be only 2 more buys left in this half, which means only getting 2 full effective rounds with that strategy they've been cooking up in that timeout.
Spike planted.
Spike will finally go down, though. Something that has been troublesome for FGCU. EJ skates over towards Cubby. Doesn't last too much longer there. This is where Uber prays that the dark cover and the maybe Stewie impersonation they can do in Valorant will hopefully help them out. Frisco trying to see if maybe a pixel of something can be spotted from the smoke. It'll dissipate. Crossfire, and it's an easy cleanup crew for Florida Orange. There is no world where that smoke buys you enough time to secure a victory in that round.
My ult is ready. It is over.
The troubles tally even further for the controller choice of FGCU. They don't even have anything for post-play. It's not like they have a molly or an orbital strike to hold back towards May. They have to sit on site for that trike plant.
Yep.
I hate saying that it feels like a game is lost in the agent selection, but it's looking like that for FGCU because they got the short hand of the stick starting off on attack. If their mental cannot recover for the second half comeback, this first half will be all that's needed to secure a victory for Florida Orange.
Once again, I mean, the defense, no sentinel whatsoever. And I mean, even then, you've given Florida the benefit of that, honestly. Saying they don't need a sentinel because it feels like there's nothing they really have to stop right now. So moving into that second half, when they are at the point of saying, sweet. I mean, the only thing we don't have is a flank watch at that point, but we can just allocate a player to it. Our confidence is more than enough to compensate for that at this point in the game, because most of our players can one by one just sort of kind of win their individual fights, carry things on, and just feel effective in every single circumstance. Speaking of effective, there it is. There could have been a bit of a decay to find a free pick onto Austin, but already you do find somewhat of an exchange there, 1-for-1. Nightfall is successful in finding your place on the site. Still, Hunter's Fury will stop you. Being a snipe away, able to find a kill and another hit onto another player. But here comes Killer. Trying to give it an exchange. Orbital Barrage is still available for that Brimstone. But player, I don't know if he needs it, honestly.
You're supposed to be a hero, bot!
Launching smoke.
EJ has no right to win that one so freely, it seems. Frisco within the sky smoke.
Open up this
Get close to the lip. It's
Last
almost
player
right, but
standing.
Uber's a lot
One
closer than they
enemy
thought.
remaining.
Shrouded Step was readied. Blair will get closer to the spike. One more smoke is available. They have a shorty in hand. Maybe they could
No time,
force
though. He's gotta do it now.
something. But player has just refused to get close to this. Even if you win that shot, time was already ticking too far to be wrought with any success. Uber will secure victory. Top fragging. I guess B-site is really the only objective where you'd only need one smoke at best. Or worse, I should say. That at least stops them from being a 9-2 half, or sorry, 10-2 half. At least get them 3. Hopefully use that as a point to get 4.
They wanted this round last during this half, but I mean, is that and the round afterwards really going to do it for you? Be nice. FGCU, I mean, they were able to turn up on defense in that last map. I mean, you're not working with the same kind of resources what we saw prior. You're not working with the same map, the same lineups. You're running into players much quicker in much closer quarters.
Head was spotted.
Piss off.
Wait. Couldn't get it. Good God, Clash.
Last player standing.
Showstopper makes it worse. Zero knows they're going to hit theirs. Seekers send out. Clash can make the call out. Hey, that rotated off towards Courtyard. Shot from mid. The rotate's covered by Spices. No way they can head that direction. Have one player watch deep towards Shower. You've had your Viper rotate there. Kogan is under watchful eye. And now with the shots from Uber coming off towards Courtyard, you know who this player is. There is no denying the inevitability of Uber's death. It's just a matter of if they can do it flawlessly, and Florida will be capable of exactly that. Frisco is 14-5 on the Silva.
Last round before the switch.
We question the pick, but it's seemingly the odd picks for both sides are tough fragging, but the big difference maker has been Frisco's choice instead. That Hunter Sphere alone, Dallas, has been valuable immensely, especially that last round.
About a kill and a half of it. And denied plant.
And
So.
buys so much time, even if they don't win that round.
Just not looking good. I mean, not the Sova. The Omen, I think, is going to be better on defense just because you kind of have that time and you're not really trying to set up executes.
Even reactionary paranoia.
Fire in the hole.
Right. But, I mean, here in this kind of situation, it's not look good. Yeah. You
Grenade.
stepped out there. That's just getting cocky. That's all that is.
Kogan wanted it. Fiending for it.
Spike
We'll
planted.
get this plant down, and FGCU are now in a post-plant snare with all 5 remaining in the last round of this first half. Zero takes TP. Pink Shell's out following the Roomba that came into Hookah. Be aware of the possibility that killer was there, but it would have been dealt with by Clash instead on the other end. Down they go. Austin
One
with the
enemy
refrag.
remaining.
Has to get more. Frisco does it entirely all by themselves. Folly having Universe to assist. And it's the top 2 fraggers for Florida Orange to net them their guaranteed 9-3 split. Polar opposite of FGCU's 9-3 split at the end of Haven.
Switching sides.
Yeah, I mean, just outstanding seeing what's going on here. Good looks from everybody on the side of Florida Orange, keeping things rolling, retorting that one round,
There.
that streak broken earlier. But, I mean, we're now in a new half. We get to see how these pistol rounds go. This is where FGCU, they have to buy themselves any level of breathing room because if they don't manage to do that, quite frankly, I mean, we see what Florida does with these rifles in hand, and, I mean, this game could be over within a flash, quite frankly. So, I mean, really concerning even just to think about that. Of what we saw map number 1, it was so darn close. Map number 2, obviously a bit further, but, I mean, there was just kind of shreds of light there, scattered about, looking like things could be done. But here, it's felt a lot closer to a shutout, even though the half result was the same exact thing in that last map. So, I mean, obviously Florida getting their revenge here more than anything, and they're taking it in strides.
Talked so much about the difficulties that FGCU would have ahead of them. Also highlighted the positives. While the pistol round may not be the round we expect That impact to be felt. Not very much utility would be in the pockets of these players. Classics typically you'd see. Maybe a couple sheriffs here and there if they may make some sacrifices for their utility. They'll be a whole lot more patient, it seems. Some teams like to play a quick rush through short to get that A site and force the rotate and try to take advantage. No can do for Florida Orange. Now you'll see the util burn. Smoke placed for Heaven, smoke placed for Lamp. They will not split the site in two. Instead, they just want to clear the majority sidelines. They'll take closer cubby angles if
Spike
possible, but
planted.
FGCU have gotten the upper hand initially. Those shots, 3 versus 5 now. Austin trying to ring terror and towards site, towards truck, but Kogan gets the nice 2-click. To wombo combo, Uber off the board, and in Clash crouches for their kill off to Lucky. And Kogan's already low on HP, 20 HP, same with Clash. They can't rotate over to try and assist because Kogan's been dealt with. 3 versus 2. Frisco needs to get
One
to the
enemy
fuser. Does
remaining.
one more.
Last player standing.
Clash! Play time! One more, the swing, the time is
Oh my
perfect in
God.
Florida! How clean, how tight in angle and timing! And they steal a great start for FGCU back into their clutches.
And even then, understanding, I mean, it would be even better if they made the call letting you know it was already stuck to half, saying that, like, there's a difference in the mental game of understanding that, okay, I can go ahead, ping that thing up to half, and I mean, obviously you disrupt right before the half clicks, but knowing that it's there, it's so much more tempting just to stick it when you're that close to the end than what it is when you're that close to the half with that much time remaining. Knowing that, why even concern ourselves with a fight on the pistol round when we could just win it? And it makes that swing that much more kind of blindsided. Good opener here from Florida Orange, though, once more following things up, seemingly not slowing down from the momentum they found there in that last half. Also able to find at least one pick. The Phantom recovered, so I mean, the Bulldog here to be picking up by somebody else because obviously he can hear with this gun. We'll just be running forward, taking as many fights as humanly possible. Wow! So long as you just know the general.
One enemy
area,
remaining.
be taking those shots, the Phantom will do the work for you.
Lucky, what can you possibly do? Weapons in front of you, but will you be given the safe space to be able to collect them and work with? Kogan round the bend, and it will be a 4th one for your Viper of choice on Florida Orange. Sacrifices had to be made for FGCU, but apparently 4 of them will be sacrificed into the ult pool of Kogan, who's now 2 pips away. Already into round 3. They could have this in round 3. And we saw a gorgeous early game for Kogan in the first half on defense. They were everything. That first 7-round spree, 7 successive rounds in a row on defense. They were huge, so they were only 4 or 5 of those. Nearly being the only person on that B site and the team trusting them to do so. Seeing them already find that almost same level of success on the attack going into round 2. What can they possibly cook up going to 3 as they could hunt for an ult orb if they wanted to, but the orb off towards Showers will be collected instead by a very greedy and aggressive FGCU. Right idea, great choice, great implementation. They smoke it in preparation. Killer rendezvous out. It's their free kill, and FGCU will ride the high of a first blood to hopefully keep Florida Orange at bay.
That was a direct hit by the Trailblazer.
Spike
That
down,
could have killed
B.
Killer, but instead, they're giving the guy 2 more to go home with.
Last player
I'm going with you
standing.
here. I mean, Kogan could have just found maybe 1 pick there or picked up an ult orb. He ended up winning that round, and he just, all right, call it quits. But FGCU, thankfully, end up getting themselves around here to play with, and this could be the same kind of momentum shifter we saw during that first half. Maybe they could just start absolutely running through with this, being they have a Sentinel, being they have a sort of force to play with, and that's one less player who really has to opt in for a buy. But the biggest thing now, I think, honestly, is Florida and the notes have been taken. You know that Chambers more than likely to be holding that B long over and over and over again, especially with the Tour de Force now in play. You don't want to be playing from the backside over there towards Heaven on the A side. So long as Kogan can manage to pick anything up, which he doesn't even need to, was able to find a successful something there in that last round and able to manage to get that Viper's pick. And even then, Frisco's still winning that fight towards B, shutting that down.
Bring them down.
It's at a point where, I mean, this round don't invest the Vipers, but I'd save it for a match point. Because if you win this
Bomb right
round,
now.
just based off pure vanilla skill, then, I mean, you're looking good for the next one. It's going to be an eco buy for FGCU. That's a Viper's Pit in play. That's going to be a nightmare to maneuver through.
Viper's Pit will be forced to be used in a different round, though, because Kogan Can't survive the onslaught of shots coming back their way, and the brass falling to the floorboards, and Hookah is lucky. Now wanting one more. Frisco, maybe the player to get against, and it will be. 2 players for Lucky. Trying to help the team out as much as possible to keep FGCU in this one. As it'll be 2 players lagging behind in showers for the defense to, well, wash away the sins of Player Universe and their transgressions off towards site. It's the last 2 now on short.
Hawk out.
What can they do? Spike in hand. They want to get it planted down at the minimum.
Sleep tight.
And maybe able to squeak away some
One
kills and make
enemy
this
remaining.
manageable. Or was it for Zero getting dusted
30
too
seconds
soon
left.
with a crossfire from Uber. In between, Paranoia out, short side, not much you can do, and it's just the spray through box for Austin. Clean cut round for FGCU despite the rough start and the loss of life there for Killer with the tour de force. Everything else afterwards fell where it should.
Flash being alive there as the last player. That's one of those guys I feel like anything's doable. I mean, obviously not the highest in terms of trade-offs, but I mean, we've seen anytime this guy actually lights up on the kill feed and they manage to get one, it's like a domino effect. He's always able to string a couple more together. Finds 2 or 3. So you're happy to have a player like that, but even then better yet for FGCU, they're happy to have themselves another round on the board. Keeping things rolling. Forcing Nico here from Florida Orange. I'm curious to see whether or not they actually want to be using the Viper's Pit in a post-plant scenario, even on an eco, if they feel like it's going to give enough of like an edge, or if they're just going to play into the fact that they're in such a monumentous lead here with 6 more rounds to play with, that they could accumulate another ultimate by that time. But what's going on right here is you have a player sneaking up through showers. The other 4 players obviously want to charge right onto this B site, understanding where the chamber is, and now getting a read of where Lucky's at as well. Showstopper comes out, finds the effect. FGCU are just mowing down these players. And it's going to be the most obvious thing to them now to say, well, obviously Kogan's somewhere different. Where? That Viper's Pit was going to go into play this round because that's your lurker. And what angles do you watch? They're all watching forward, but Austin has a better idea.
Flawless.
Possible flank as it comes underway. And a flawless comes out for FGCU as we move ourselves into an 11-6. So keeping things rolling along. It's looking more and more doable. Florida isn't really concerning themselves with it because every single round it feels like whether it was won or lost, it is another ultimate accumulated inside this game where they get to the point where they can just invest everything in one fell swoop and possibly get themselves a match point. And worst case scenario, past there, they play overtime and their defense is just seemingly unbeatable. But they got a long way to get to that point, so you don't even really think about that. It's FGCU who's striving for this game to not only carry on, but to hopefully turn the tables.
I don't remember if I mentioned it in the first half, but I felt like I definitely thought of it. Kogan is essentially the Sentinel for Florida Orange. This is maybe the reason why they're going for the Initiator and the Sova as well. That Toxic Screen, the Poison Cloud, the Snake Bites, all of those are utility that have to be used and burned that FGCU need to worry about. You essentially just treat Kogan as that site implementator, that site holder, that Sentinel for your team. That's why Kogan's alone now on the attack. Treat them as your Sentinel. Treat them as that one lone man army off to the opposing side. Everyone else needs to be very much so
I've got
there
your trail.
to clear out objectives. Secrets will come forward through B-Long, cleared away from Killer. Killer was also forced off of Hut. They'd used their rendezvous there just previously in the prep phase to get a secondary angle to work with and change up the sight lines and add variation as TP will be taken. Spike not with them though. Spike was towards Hookah. Means it'll be lagging behind every little bit, but the shots just are clean as need be. Clash with a headshot wall bang off to Austin. Kogan inside lamp will avoid the Prowler, hunting for one towards Metal.
Spike
Will
planted.
they find it? They don't over-aggress. Wisening up. Sitting just close to the inner corner. They'll send a snake bite and fall back as the Prowler comes back chasing their way. They don't want to be caught off guard. Let the snake bite do its dirty work and buy itself some time. One flank through Spices. Sky for Sky. Can Lucky get a frag? They'll be able to deal with Kogan, but refrag just as quickly. Player rotating through the back of Psyche.
Oh my God!
But that's it! No more past it! As
Nice,
EJ,
nice.
the world of hell in front of them, and the orbital strike
One
that's soon to
enemy
fall.
remaining. My
Lining
ult
up
is
the
ready.
molly. This may not be
Okay,
well placed. It's
where was
not.
Nowhere to run!
Conscious Fury. It'll buy you enough time. Get them off one more. No, they'll stick it.
Oh my God!
They'll stick it in the final moments. So much utility burnt and ultimate wasted, and the ones we were saying were going to be key for Florida to get to match in series point weren't yet enough.
3 of those ultimates, or 2 of those ultimates, better yet, gone. I expected 0 to honestly kind of get theirs by now as well, but it's another scenario where FGCU is squeaking things out by just the nick of their teeth. It's the smallest things here and there, but another eco here for Florida, which is going to be big for FGCU because obviously they're creating a little bit more space for themselves to be working with, buying a bit more time inside this matchup as they're seemingly getting the hang of this
Where
thing.
are you?
Their defense hasn't been amazing by any means, but it's been enough. And quite frankly, it could be the point where they turn the tides, where they get
Satchel out.
themselves the game to play with. Nightfall, Seekers in hand. Seekers wouldn't be bad for an early investment when you see a possible hit coming down just to kind of create some secondary targets to distract the offense, but so much still at play here, and the guns in hand, you're not really trying to stress using these ultimates too much in a round like this. You're hoping that Florida makes enough mistakes, plays slow enough.
Enemy mark.
I mean, Florida's already made the mistakes enough as is. Their confidence has been a curse for them to a certain degree, as we've seen a lot of these fights going down in a degree that feels kind of unnecessary, to say the least. But it feels like every single time, regardless of whether they want to take these fights or not, they always find the positioning for them. They always find space.
30
They always
seconds
just
left.
kind of take territory inside of this map. And we talk about that territory now being taken. It needs to be executed upon. We talked about how this map goes. If you're sitting at 15 seconds and don't have that spike down, you've already done so many things wrong. Florida hasn't really tried anything at all. But now here they are. Spike goes down, Showstopper comes out, Viper sit there to follow it up, but FGCU put it
Last
there
player
less,
standing.
mowing through the masses to this floor orange, not giving them a chance, but Universe isn't going to let this game in so easily. Oliver Barros goes down on the spike, fighting a bit of time, but you can't get the peak to get the volley off. That's the biggest problem here. You need to get this timer off, and while the HUD isn't really interacting with the game here, you are on the spike, you are closing that out, and you are finding yourself an 8 to work with here. Every single ultimate being invested by Florida, and they still can't find a way to squeak one out.
It's looking pretty for FGCU. Every difficulty, every trial, every tribulation of that first half, the mental stayed strong. That was something I mentioned when we get to round 8 or 9 in that first half, saying if they can't get things under their feet, if they can't find things in wraps, can their mental allow them to recover in the second half? And they're proving they are steadfast, they are strong, and they will find themselves with a game on their hands. 11-8, still a couple mistakes from FGCU, and Florida will net themselves not only match point, but series point, and possibly a mistake or two away from ending this one in 13. It's hard-pressed to see FGCU make those mistakes, especially when they couldn't get it done with ultimates. Who's to say they can do it without 4 players deep through lamp, using the toxic screen to do so. Skates watching and waiting. They have a haunt that can send over the top. They know there's a paint shell through. They know it's a snake bite. They're trying to use the C's and paint shell combo we highlighted on map 1. It was absent on map 2. But it rains out on a map we don't expect it.
Spike down
Wasn't nearly
A.
enough. There's one shot from Florida. It only is even. As the full team will rotate in Dallas and set up for a close plant. That seems impossible. But that's why you have Chamber lagging behind in case the TB is used, since that's always an option now for Florida. But they don't have the smokes. Your controller's gone. You have no way to deny them and slow down the rotate towards the B side, and Florida
30
just need to
seconds
bide
left.
their time until
Right
they
here.
finally say, yep, we'll either throw down all
Caution
the
here.
smokes necessary to control this objective, which it looks like they're doing with the pips onto the objective, or to take that eventual TP. As Lucky rotates too soon, and Florida start to play the smokes down, and they'll engage onto site.
Dim beacon here.
10 seconds left.
So little time. That does go down. That denial could have been huge if you just sprayed through and possibly land the shot of a lifetime, but in a 4v4 kind of situation, you're waiting for the rotates to come in. You see so many players come back from the spawn, and even then you see Austin up top waiting for anybody to just go ahead and peek their head. But as it stands right now, so many players sitting inside a U-Haul waiting for these lap rounds, waiting for things to happen. But Lucky can find at least one here to make sure the numbers go into their favor. And it's just going to be an absolute spray down, trying to buy this time. That's all it
Last
comes
player
down
standing.
to. Viper doesn't have 2 snake bites. Bryn doesn't have a molly, or even better yet, a life to work with. And Zero lagging behind inside that round. It couldn't have a take inside the fight as well. So as we see things once again, another round concluded, another win for FGCU. They are completely reciprocating what we saw in that first half from Florida on this defense. And while it seemingly feels a little bit easier with that peace of mind over towards the B site, with Chamber holding that thing down, knowing that you do have a Sentinel to come into play here, you have a Treymark. While a singular one, it's something. It's more reactionary and it's automated, letting you know that you don't need to concern yourself with reactions or whether or not players are pushing up or sneaking through the midst of the map. So it makes things a lot easier for FGC to know that they can allocate towards that A site, and every single time a hit goes down there, they are prepared for it every single time. And we have seen that as Florida has now hit the A site, what feels like out of these last, six, or at least 6 rounds won, it feels like 4 of them at least. The majority have definitely been over towards that A site. We have not seen a full buy really attributed to that B site yet. And I mean, I'm curious to see what that would look like, because the Viper's pit, I feel like, would have a little bit more impact over on that side of the map, but that's not really much of a factor now before you get to like an 11-12 situation. But it is just so unfortunate to see that Florida, while they were looking so darn hot, it just feels like they've been snuffed out. And even then, as I mentioned, on the second round, that they were carrying that momentum from the last half, and somehow they just completely have lost it.
B-site's a little bit difficult when you're facing off against a fade. You have that slit over towards elbow. You can send the haunt up over the top two, gets the majority of sight, gets the entry to hookah. You have the toss up over the wall from elbow that gets right down towards B-long. Florida, while they've been somewhat slim on their defaulting downs, it still feels like they're always willing to take the TP, and maybe too willing to take the TP on over to the A site instead. I need to test this B site. All the times that they just apply a little bit of pressure on A, start to fool a couple of individuals. It's very quick to see Lucky rotate and try to assist. If they can catch Lucky off guard, it would have been the perfect chance, but Lucky goes and finds a kill instead, as Clash had the chance. But the flick goes too high, and the crosshair placement wasn't perfect enough. And the concern that could have been alleviated due to that player disadvantage early will take a little bit longer to clap back. Sheriff's miss from Player Universe, but the Guardian connects, and you have yourself now an extra weapon to wield as your team unfurls themselves deep across this A site. Smoke's going into play for him, hoping to step forward as Player Universe wants to engage for a kill. They'll move into elbow, but they get caught off from Austin dropping from heaven. No one holding that side. There's nothing you can do. Don't extend so deep out away from that smoke. First goes too deep on the side. All smokes will dissipate. You've got to find a kill, and Clash does so. Killer, both on desk.
Oh my God!
Frisco with the spray transfer. Both are falling on the exit out, and Austin's alone. Needs to extend. Knows both are there. The Rainy Knight's wall bangable, but you can't guarantee anything. You have to peek safely, and there just is no safety from Frisco. Match and series point finally for Florida.
Match point.
An insane opportunity even there as well. I mean, to shut down that player of Frisco who was in that situation. I don't know if, I mean, we were paying attention. I mean, you obviously didn't call it, but I mean, seeing how Frisco literally pushed out through the smoke to that opposite side and wrapped around Rady Knight into the other smoke. Was fully exposed to 3 players. And they just completely neglected him, only to get gunned down by that same individual only mere seconds later. That's what buying does to you. Too many things going on at one time. You just lose track of the smallest things, which just well up behind you. And once again, that factor of speed comes into play once more, where you're saying how exactly, what kind of problem can he become? Well, this is the #1 shooter of Florida in this map. So, yeah, it would have been pretty nice to get rid of him if you're looking to kind of get a comeback going. And, I mean, regardless, win or loss of that round, they've done exactly that. 6 rounds in a row, here to still play, still kind of rocking it as best they can, but now we're in a situation where Florida, it's a match point scenario. They struggled to get past 11. They finally created a bit of a shutdown and created themselves some breathing room I'm curious to know whether they can actually double down or whether or not we're going to see that same string come along once more to find ourselves in overtime, because it's only 3 to get there for FGCU.
Talk a lot about this is buying, and this is how the smokes turn out to be. A lot of CS players will complain about Valorant for the pure fact that it's just a jumbled mess when things get going. CS post plants, you watch the site as the free cam goes over. It's a couple smokes, a couple pot flashes, and that's it. Valorant, it's a lot of smokes, a lot of random util, and a mess. And you see Frisco get away with a lot in that mess, and even use it as a way to capitulate a point for 3 to finish out a major round needed for FGCU to stop the hemorrhaging. It was 7 in a row in the first half for Florida before FGCU found a footing. 6, though, back in the second for Florida after FGCU was coming into it. That's a round too soon. We cannot see a perfect mirror of that first half, because that means Florida will get a round prior than they should be. As that first blood gets Kogan, you've lost that Viper, and you've lost that huge shot onto the A site in the attempt for the TP as they go out towards B. The Seekers once more, and the team jumps out of hookah. We'll get that plant down at the hands of Frisco as the wall bang. What in the world? Player just knows.
Here comes the party.
I think that Roomba hit. No. Yes. Lucky. Big look at damage. Waiting with a guiding light. 0 on Hut. That flash goes a bit too far for player in Garden, but it's still too slow for the uptick. Trades across both sides. 2 versus 2 post plant. Player working alongside 0, sitting inside of elbow. The Sky Smoke trying to buy them time. The Hot not getting any intel and not spotting nothing. Prowler down on the ground, forced away. Uber
Last
trying to play cover.
standing.
Gets the first. The player universe just has to go for it. FGCU will secure up to double digits
button.
and
Save the
stays
day.
on bind a moment longer.
And they find themselves one more step in that double-digit journey as well, seeing that Florida Orange does not have the economy to really buy up everything they need for a round like this. And you definitely can't go into round 11 knowing that you're not going to have that buy to play with, because if you end up losing that one, well, you're into overtime at that point. You have to go ahead and spend it all in the next. So this is the one where you can really take a hit. But as we've seen previously, Florida has managed to make these rounds look at least feasible during the majority of these cases, at least when they were on defense. But attack has been another thing. It's been over and over and over again. They've just been essentially drowning, and finally just getting afloat for a second is a breath of relief for them, but not really sure what they can do going next. Is there a tech or something?
I think they had another player DC was supposed to pause.
Understood. Thanks, Bobby. Maybe. I can't repeat what he said.
I can't repeat what he said either. Oh, but you can't say that. Take your guesses. This is what he said. If Dallas and I refuse to say it, you got some wild guesses.
Honestly, I've been
here.
saying this a lot recently. They're just mucking around because it's an
Good way to phrase it. Good way to keep it PG. Kind of. 3 versus 4. Florida will at least get the spike down on site.
Found
FGCU have the player advantage. They've got a cinch in position
out.
towards elbow. They've got a seeker that actually hits
Last
0,
player
which means them
standing.
flashed. And Austin can get frags with gun up or paint shells out. It's what you would expect. They get some credits. They value that state, and Florida Orange were in a spot where they go, hey, if we buy out this round, we are not buying out the next round for a 12-12. We cannot let that happen. We need the final to be everything. Let's get the ult pips for this round. Let's get the plant down. Let's make sure we'll have our kits, our guns, and everything in our repertoire at the ready to shut them down in the very last possible round before OT.
Tour de Force already in play. That could be a nice little ace up the sleeve if they do end up actually pushing towards that A area. But the biggest concern behind it is if Kogan's the one pushing that. We've seen those lurks take place a lot. We've seen players kind of look for that emphasis, look for these isolated fights, but it's one of these situations where we see Florida actually coming together and collaborating as a singular unit to get themselves onto a site. And well, when it comes around to a 50-50 and who you're facing up against, I'd say you chose right in terms of the numbers, but when you look at who's here on site, Uber is always a bit of a problem. And actually
There's
getting
no
that
way.
off and living is just utterly disgusting. With
That
the plan
actually-
going down.
That could be the craziest thing because we highlighted the change-up for Frisco earlier, Dallas, and saying that he lived way longer than he should have, and he changed the game for Florida Orange.
Bomb buddy out.
Zero surviving. Mark my words, they will be the player that puts FGCU on the back burner.
Probably finds at least one more too.
Flash
You found
sitting
one
inside
more,
Octagon.
I'd say so.
They rotated to hookah. They have intel position. EJ tapping the diffuser.
Prepare for hellfire.
Flash gets one before falling. This is a shot for Zero. There's the value I asked for. It's
Last
there.
player
But the
standing.
hunt back in return. 1 versus 4 in the much needed final round. And it's Florida Orange
Attackers
surviving the most
Nowhere
desperate
to run.
straits imaginable. A major comeback in the second half
Yeah.
from a ridiculously solid first half into a poor second. They stay alive for once again. Not a 13-10 like map 1, not a 13-5 like map 2.
Right.
13-11, one round away from what felt like it should have been and would have been a perfectly infinite OT on the map of Bind.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the same exact level of play. I mean, honestly, one round off, but it wasn't even kind of a back and forth when it came around to that second half to even get there. It wasn't like a string of 2 and then 1, 2, then 1 type deal. It was just a string of 6, essentially replicating what we saw during that first half from Orange. And I think, honestly, it's a big thing to really attribute what exactly was going on for FGCU. I mean, obviously, you had 2 players stepping up, and Uber being alive at the end of that was kind of a big thing. That was a player I was expecting to kind of be the biggest impact when it came around to that retake, because Uber also, I think, really had a shot there for a second onto, really had a shot onto Zero, and it just wasn't really there for it. But even then, I mean, lucky not living there is also a little bit unfortunate. So knowing that, like I said, one more kill being made by Zero there would have really just kind of just solidified everything, but they didn't even really need it. It's just weird to see how long it took to find a solution. I even said it earlier. I said they were hitting A side over and over and over again during the majority of their actual full buy rounds. And those were always feeling very awkward because obviously with Vibe only having one snake bite now and the Brim Molly's never really being positioned, because even then we didn't see like the lineups across the map or anything like that. We saw a player kind of pushing up, looking for a bit of a position to actually just kind of go for an easy little wall bounce or something, while still having visual of it to let you know whether or not if that spike was tapped per chance. Would it be in a situation where it's half, it's full? You kind of need to go peek that. You need to be ready for it, or you need to go ahead and preemptively pop your Hunter's Fury. And that's one of those circumstances that we saw, especially in that 2vx, where we did have player and we had Frisco alive. And those are the 2 players there trying to deny that diffusal. And that was the last millisecond diffusal that went off there, to where if you pop that Hunter's Fury just a tiny second earlier and just space those out, then you're looking good. But we just didn't get that opportunity. And honestly, FGCU obviously can do advantage of that. And I think it's just really unfortunate to see they lost this matchup. I would have liked to at least see OT before they did lose that, because I feel like they deserve that ending. I feel like they deserve to at least find some level of redemption, find a bounce back, and at least get one of those attacking side rounds, because they can say at least we have more of a better idea going into these next couple weeks of if we do ever get locked out like this, what breaks these chains? What is the key for this lock? How exactly can we get through this? What is the solution? And better yet, what is the problem? So we can address this with other teams a lot more efficiently, a lot earlier. But I mean, it's just how the game goes. They never got that opportunity.
Producer said at the beginning of this game, they asked if they thought this was going to be a 2-mapper or a 3-mapper. I said, I think it's going to be a 3-mapper. You said the same thing. You thought this was going to be the best matchup of the week, which is why we picked to go on broadcast. Yeah, we thought this was going to be a good game, and my goodness, it was. And I agree. I think they deserved a OT on whether it be map 1 or 3. I think they deserved an OT. They fought for it. They kept their mental, which was my fear after the halftime result being so lopsidedly in favor for Florida Orange. I think FGCU deserved, with that huge just trial and tribulation they went through and all their efforts and everything they had, to see it not reach the point at which they can have a better shot at it. It kind of stinks. But no matter the case, they put their name on the table, put their name on the docket, despite the loss going against them and their tally getting even worse here so far, going into round 4 of our tier 1 block. They're a team that should have at least some fear for them, and Florida has shown there are definitely some gaps in their armor for both of these sides, and that's something that some of these tier 1 teams are going to be votering, and they're going to be watching. They're going to keep an eye out for to lock that in and make sure these teams have no chance. So they got to do their own work, do their own homework, and fix some of those chains that are missing in their armor. That is it for us, though, today here at Dallas for the SCL. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Next week, we'll have more Valorant action on Thursday, likely as well for one sometime next week over on the B stream, as well as having Rocket League show up on Wednesday, as always, for the SCL. So stay tuned for that. Don't go anywhere for SCL. Check out the socials down below us. Check out our Discord to stay tuned for everything we have, and we'll see you guys next week.